Chapter 10:20. The appearance of the top 10 the next day. The competition for the top 10 began under the anticipation of hundreds of millions of people. The arena was still under the royal tower. The arena was once again widened, lengthened, and strengthened. The number of imperial guards guarding the arena was increased by 5 times. Even the 4 Emperor Realm experts from the Imperial Palace, Prophet Mingsheng, were dispatched. The scale was so large that it showed the importance of this competition. After all, this was the competition to determine the top 10 of the Imperial Martial Grand Ceremony. It was also the first step for the contestants to become the champion. As the name suggested, the top 10 competition consisted of Duan Ziju, Song Ziyang, and Tai Guili. The top 11 to 20 contestants would challenge the top 10 hidden monstrous geniuses on the Imperial Martial ranking. Among the challengers, Qin Hao and Xiaogua were among them. Once they defeated their opponents, Qin Hao and Duan Ziju's group would replace Murong Ziju and Qi Yuan's group and participate in the next battle for the top 3. If they failed, they would be mercilessly eliminated and lose the chance to marry Xiaohan. Accompanied by a sea of people, the challengers were the first to step onto the arena. The leader was Duan Ziju. Next were Song Ziyang, Qin Hao, Tai Guili, Yi Shuihan, Xiaogua. They went onto the arena one by one according to their individual rankings. Qin Yun, Xiao Jiao, Xing Er, and Chen Wanqin walked at the end. The 4 of them were the last to pass the finals. As for Yi Wuhan, he was more miserable. He defeated an opponent in the finals, but in the second round, he met a tough opponent. The opponent's defense was very high, and he was a cultivator with an earth-attributed source spirit, which perfectly countered Yi Wuhan's quicksword. In the final move, both of them were heavily injured, and it ended in a draw. Although it was a draw, they lost the qualification to enter the finals. Yi Wuhan was currently sitting behind Yao Lao with a wrinkled face. He was watching the competition as a disciple of Qi Yang, but his face was filled with unhappiness. He was the first to be eliminated. It was too embarrassing. Yi Wuhan wanted to cry. Let's invite the top 10 of the Imperial Martial ranking to come onto the arena. Gongsun Changxing stood on the royal tower and shouted in a solemn voice. Instantly, the spectators around the battle arena all stood up at the same time in an unusually orderly manner. To the audience, the 10 contestants whose names were hidden on the Imperial Martial ranking were all extremely mysterious. Even though they knew that the Yin dynasty's crown prince, Murong Ziju, and the Northern Qi dynasty's crown prince, Qi Yuan, the audience did not know about the other 7 contestants. This was especially true for the number 1 person. The identity of a number 1 expert was extremely attractive. At this moment, Duan Ziju and the others who stood side by side, including Qin Hao, didn't blink as they stared fixedly at the entrance of the stone steps on the east side of the arena. Inside the tunnel, the top 10 geniuses of the martial monarch realm would appear one after another. Under the expectant gazes of the crowd, a young man in a light purple robe was the first to enter from the east. He slowly walked onto the stage with a smile on his face. He raised his hand to greet everyone and appeared very friendly. Ranked 10th on the Imperial Martial ranking. He's a genius from the southern domain, Zheng Qingqi. Gongsun Changxing gave a simple introduction to the friendly young man. This person actually came from the southern region. His ranking is higher than Prince Duan's. It seems that his cultivation is not simple. You don't need to tell me that. Even a dog can tell. The audience discussed Zheng Qingqi animatedly. Greetings, brothers. I'm Zheng Qingqi. Later on, no matter who you encounter, please go all out, because I won't hold back. Zheng Qingqi smiled at Qin Hao and the others on the west side. He was very polite. Xiaogua and Yi Shuihan curled their lips. Even a fool would know who held back. At this moment, a young man in a tight black robe appeared at the entrance of the east side. He was handsome and free, and his black hair swayed with the wind. He was very charming. However, compared to Zheng Qingqi, who was exuding a friendly aura, the young man in black had a shrewd smile on his face, which made him look very shrewd. Ranked 9th on the Imperial Martial ranking, Xinyuan Wuji from the Proud God Nation in the Southern Domain. Gongsun Changxing shouted. Another person from the southern domain? Two geniuses from the southern domain have entered the top 10 of the imperial martial ranking without participating in the competition. Their cultivation is too amazing. This time, an uproar could not help but arise in the spectator stands. Is he Xianyuan Wuji mentioned by Gongshu Jian, the master of the same year and month? Following this, Qin Hao hurriedly enveloped it with his consciousness. After Xianyuan Wuji stepped onto the stage, he didn't greet Xiaohua and the other challengers politely like Zhang Qingqi. Instead, he didn't speak at all. In other words, he disdained to speak. Instead, he just sneered as if Duan Ziju and Song Zhang were ants in his eyes. However, when Qin Hao sent his spiritual energy over, Xianyuan Wuji suddenly burst into laughter, which startled Zhang Qingqi. Closely after that, Xianyuan Wuji made a gesture of cutting his throat towards Qin Hao. F***CK. Xiaohua glared at Xianyuan Wuji as he was going to tear Xianyuan Wuji's face. Don't worry. Now that it's the competition for the top 10, let's challenge him later. Yi Shuihan stopped Xiaohua. Only then did Xiaohua temporarily swallow the anger in her heart. At this moment, two more young men walked out of the Eastern Passage. As soon as these two people appeared, the audience and the Imperial Pavilion could not help but burst into cheers. The two young men were no strangers to the martial artists of the northern border. They were Song Zijia, the youngest son of the head of the Song family, one of the 5 heroes of the northern border, and Jiang Zizai, the eldest son of the head of the Medicine Emperor Pavilion. Jiang Zizai was Jiang Fengyu's elder brother. As for Jiang Fengyu, he had just died in Qin Hao's hands. Chapter 10:21. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translation 6 against 6-inch ranked 8th on the Imperial Martial Roll, Northern Qi's Holy Land of Alchemists, Medicine Emperor Pavilion's eldest disciple, Jiang Zizai. Ranked 7th on the Imperial Martial Roll, Northern Yan's wealthy Song family, Song Zijia. I believe I don't need to introduce these two, right? Gongsun Changxing's voice spread from the Imperial Tower. The audience burst into laughter. Pavilion Master Zhang's son and the Song family's most favored successor naturally didn't need to be introduced. Everyone was very familiar with them. Zizai, my son, the guy in white with dim eyes on the stage is Qin Hao, the madman who killed your brother. Chop him into 1,000 pieces for your father, and viciously trample him to death in front of everyone's eyes. Let his cries spread throughout the world. Pavilion Master Jiang stood in the Imperial Tower and roared with righteous indignation as Jiang Zizai stepped onto the stage. Father, don't worry. I'll make Qin Hao regret living in this world. Of course, before I use the fatal move, I'll tear him into pieces first. Jiang Zizai replied with his hands behind his back. His attitude was extremely arrogant, and he didn't take Qin Hao seriously at all. Pavilion Master Jiang stroked his beard arrogantly and sat down with satisfaction. Then he deliberately turned his head to look at Xiao Yi, who was sitting at the top of the Imperial Tower. His eyes were full of unbridled laughter. Xiao Yi directly ignored him, treating Pavilion Master Jiang as a fart. Zijia, don't disappoint me and all the elders of the family. Song family leader roared in a very strict tone. Since Song Ziyang appeared in the Imperial Martial Tournament, he knew that he was targeting Song Zijia. Song Ziyang wanted to compete with Song Zijia for the right to inherit the family. There would be a life-and-death battle between the two of them. Song Zijia clenched his right fist and raised it above his head confidently, indicating that he would win this battle. At this moment, another figure slowly walked over from the eastern corridor. This person was wearing the Northern Qi royal family's uniform. He walked lazily and looked very unhappy. It was the Northern Qi crown prince, Qi Yuan, who is as famous as Murong Zijuan. Everyone, it's been a long time. Ziju, how have you been? Qi Yuan smiled disdainfully at Duan Ziju. After him, no one else walked out of the tunnel. At this moment, Qi Yuan also turned his neck and looked at the corner of the royal tower with a dissatisfied expression. That was a very special place. It was as if Qi Yuan shouldn't be standing on the battle stage with everyone else, as he was lowering his status. He should have appeared on top of the Imperial Tower, watching the battle below as a superior. Why are there only 5 people? After glancing over Zhang Qingqi, Xinyuan Wuji, Jiang Zizai, Song Zijia, and Qi Yuan, Xiaowu gradually frowned. They were supposed to challenge the top 10 experts of the martial emperor ranking in the competition for the top 10. However, only 5 of them appeared on the side being challenged. Where are the others? Yi Shuian shouted at Gongsun Chongqing, who was on the top floor of the royal tower. The competition for the top 10 will be divided into 3 rounds. In the first round, the 10 of you will challenge the 5 of them. Only by winning the challenge can the competition continue. Gongsun Chongqing replied unhurriedly as he waved his hand at a certain spot in the imperial tower. In that empty spot, 3 extremely extraordinary figures suddenly appeared. The first one had a dignified appearance and wore a noble robe. He was Zhou Wudao of the East Continent. The second one had a strong back and a ferocious face. There was a scar at the corner of his eye. He was the chief disciple of the Zhanyue mansion, the eldest senior brother of Kill 1,000 blades and Kill 100 heads, Kill 1,000 blades. As for the third one, he was the well-known crown prince of northern Yin, Murong Zijuan. At this moment, Murong Zijuan met Qi Yuan's gaze and teased him, as if he was mocking Qi Yuan for standing on the battle stage instead of on top of the royal tower like himself. Ranked 3rd on the martial emperor ranking, the genius of the great Zhou royal family of the East Continent, Zhou Wudao. Ranked 4th on the martial emperor ranking, the personal disciple of the Zhanyue mansion's mansion master, Kill 1,000 blades. Ranked 5th on the martial emperor ranking, Murong Zijuan, the crown prince of northern Yin. Gongsun Chongqing waved his horsetail whisk and pointed at Zhou Wudao and the other 2. Then he continued, only after you defeat Prince Qi Yuan and the other 2 can you continue to challenge Zhou Wudao and the other 2. As for the 2nd and 1st on the martial emperor ranking, you are not qualified to know their identities. These were the 3 rounds of challenges for today's top 10 competition. Aren't you looking down on us too much? Xiaowu was the first to stand out and express his dissatisfaction. Qin Yun's eyebrows were tightly knitted together in an instant. 10 against 5. He was clearly implying that Qi Yuan and the other 2 had the cultivation to defeat 2 of them at the same time. This is the rules set by Emperor Shao. Those who are dissatisfied can withdraw from the competition. Gongsun Chongqing's answer was unquestionable. Of course, there are not only 5 of them in the first round. There is another person. As soon as Gongsun Chongqing finished speaking, a dazzling light bloomed in the middle of the battle stage. In the light, a small figure slowly walked out. This person had red lips, white teeth, and rosy cheeks. He was about 15 or 16 years old, but he had long white hair. It was the champion of the juvenile group, Lu Chou. After Lu Chou appeared, he arrogantly raised his head, gave Qin Hao a pinky finger, and forcefully poked downwards. The news of his appearance in the adult group competition had already spread, so no one was surprised. They were only full of expectations. I said I would fight with you, so I will definitely stand in front of you. Qin Hao, cherish what little life you have left. Lu Chou said. The atmosphere instantly sunk into tension. Qin Hao's my target. I advise you to get lost. Jiang Zizai's cold voice passed into Lu Chou's ears. Lu Chou turned back with dissatisfaction. Who do you think you are? You are courting death. Jiang Zizai's fist creaked as he clenched it. At this time, Gongsun Chongqing's voice sounded again. I don't need to repeat the rules, right? Next, the 10 of you will challenge the 6 of them. The right to challenge is in your hands. Prince Qi Yuan and the others have no right to choose. Now, you can choose your opponents at will. If that's the case, sorry, I forfeit. Suddenly, a voice of forfeiture sounded. Everyone turned to look and found that it was Qin Yun. Without giving anyone time to react, Qin Yun patted Qin Hao's shoulder and resolutely turned around to step down from the stage. This kind of competition is meaningless to me. Old cousin, little brother, little Gua, Shui Han, it's up to you now. Qin Yun has his own pride and can't stand being looked down upon like this. Moreover, he indeed has no meaning in continuing to participate. He doesn't want to marry Xiao Han. Qin Yun is someone with a wife. Therefore, he became an expert in the southern region because Qin Yun wanted to help Qin Hao block the others. Now his goal is basically completed. Qin Hao is also standing on the top 10 battle stage. Qin Yun feels that it's time for him to leave. I forfeit. Another voice sounded. It's Xing Er. I forfeit. Little Nine immediately chased after Xing Er and stepped down from the stage. I also forfeit. Chen Wanqin smiled at Qin Hao and Xiaogua. She clenched her small fists and said encouragingly, "You guys can do it." This scene of forfeiture made Duan Ziju and Qi Yuan feel baffled. They're suddenly at a loss of what to do. Hee hee, 6 against 6, now it's fair. Looking at the brothers standing beside him, Qin Hao watched Qin Yun and the others leave. Qin Hao completely understood the intentions of his old cousin and Wanqin. Chapter 1022. Translator, Transin Editor. Transin Duan Ziju is defeated. I've been waiting for you to say that. Lu Chou spread his feet apart, and a burst of energy spread out from the soles of his feet. He was really afraid that Qin Hao would not choose him. Coward, trash, shameless. Now that Qin Hao had a candidate, Jiang Zizai, who was on the opposite side, was so angry that he was jumping around. He felt that Qin Hao and Lu Chou were clearly afraid of him, afraid of being beaten to death. And Lu Chou was so young, so his cultivation was definitely the weakest. Ha ha ha. Qin Hao, you disappoint me. You're picking a kid to beat up. If you have the ability, then hit me. Punch me in the face. What bullshit #1 martial artist of Western Liang. I really feel that it's not worth it for Princess Jingwei to have a favorable impression of a piece of trash. It's too disgusting. Jiang Zizai stood on the stage and ridiculed Qin Hao. Where did this crazy dog come from? Xianyuan Wuji couldn't stand it anymore and cursed. Forgive me for being blunt, but Brother Jiang is really rude. He's ranked in the top 10 of the Emperor Martial competition. I feel extremely ashamed. Zheng Qingqi hurriedly said. Jiang Zizai couldn't help but calm down. He also felt that he was too excited and anxious. If Qin Hao was beaten to death by the white-haired kid, then he wouldn't have to do anything. It would prove that Qin Hao was indeed trash. If Qin Hao won, then Jiang Zizai would have a chance to take revenge. So Jiang Zizai had never considered whether he would lose or not. Ha ha ha, sorry, I was too excited and couldn't help but want to kick this clown out of the Sacred Emperor Martial competition. Sorry. After thinking it through, Jiang Zizai very magnanimously cupped his fists in all directions, making him look like a gentleman. Spit. Qi Xiaohua spat on the soles of Jiang Zizai's feet. He pointed at the other party and said, "It's you. I challenge you, because your skin is so thick that it makes people's hair stand on end. I can't help but want to tear it open to see what's inside." Previously, Xiaoba wanted to challenge Xianyuan Wuji. However, Jiang Zizai was too ostentatious. Melon Lord liked such ostentatious guys. You overestimate yourself. I'll take it. Jiang Zizai gladly agreed. At this moment, Yi Shuihan stood out and wanted to choose Xianyuan Wuji. Duan Ziju moved faster than Yi Shuihan as he came to the front of Xianyuan Wuji and said, "Man from Proud God Country in South Domain, I'm very interested in you. Dare you fight me?" "Oh, it's Prince Duan. I'll do as you say." Xianyuan Wuji nodded casually as if it didn't matter who challenged him. Anyway, he would win for sure. Yi Shuihan was a step slower. He looked around and realized that only Qi Yuan, Song Zijie, and Zheng Qingqi were left. Song Zijie was obviously Song Ziyang's target. Yi Shuihan didn't want to steal someone else's beauty. He pondered for a few seconds. His eyes rolled twice as a smile appeared on his lips. He cupped his fists at Zheng Qingqi and said, "Brother Qingqi, I won't be polite then." Qi Yuan was ranked 5th. Zheng Qingqi was ranked 10th. Yi Shuihan felt that Zheng Qingqi should be easier to deal with than Qi Yuan. Facing Yi Shuihan's challenge, Zheng Qingqi responded politely with eyes full of appreciation. Yi Shuihan gave him a gentle feeling, which suited Zheng Qingqi's taste. "Zijie, this day has finally come." At this moment, Song Ziyang coldly walked to Song Zijie. "Hee hee, A vile spawn doesn't have a right to call me that. Let me clean up the house on behalf of my father. Song Zijie clenched his fists. An invisible flame ignited in their eyes. Then I don't have a choice. Iron Crutchley frowned as he faced Qi Yuan and swallowed a mouthful of saliva with difficulty. A cripple. Qi Yuan's eyes widened. He had never imagined that he would be chosen by a cripple in the end. He felt that Duan Ziju should have chosen him. In the past, they had fought openly and secretly for Xiao Han, causing a lot of friction. Ha ha ha. Murong Zijuan's laughter resounded in the Imperial Tower. Qi Yuan couldn't help but feel more annoyed. He pointed at Iron Crutchley and said, "It's your misfortune to meet me." "No, no, no. It's my honor to meet Prince Qi Yuan," Iron Crutchley replied. As a commoner, he didn't dare to offend the Northern Qi imperial family. At this point, the matches were successful. Qin Hao vs Luqiu, Duan Ziju versus Xianyuan Wuji, Xiaogua versus Jiang Zizai, Yishuehan versus Zheng Qingqi, Song Zhang versus Song Zijia, competing for the position of the next patriarch. Iron Crutchley versus Qi Yuan. The one who will fight the first match will stay. The rest will retreat to the spectator area. Gong Sun Changxing shouted, "I'll fight the first match." Just when Qin Hao, Xiaogua, and Yishuehan were exchanging thoughts to decide who would fight first, Duan Ziju unexpectedly raised his arm. Seeing this, the others left Xianyuan Wuji and retreated down the stage. At this moment, Duan Ziju's expression turned solemn. Qi Yuan and Murong Zijuan's cultivation are on par, but Murong Zijuan might have an advantage in terms of physique. If I fight the two of them, I only have a 40% chance of winning. But judging from Qin Hao's performance in the Blue River Mountain, he has a 70% chance of defeating Murong Zijuan or Qi Yuan. Duan Ziju nodded. Murong Zijuan and Qi Yuan couldn't pose a threat to Qin Hao. This was a reason why he didn't choose Duan Ziju. Duan Ziju couldn't see through Xianyuan Wuji's cultivation, but he instinctively felt threatened. No matter what, I can't walk to the end and win the Emperor Martial competition for Jingwei. The only thing I could do now is to help Qin Hao test this person's cultivation. Duan Ziju sighed sorrowfully. He knew that Xiao Han didn't like him. 4 or 5 years, he hadn't been able to win Xiao Han's favor. On the contrary, Xiao Han's yearning for Qin Hao had deepened to the point that she had lost herself. If I can't get him, I'll just protect him silently, even if it means watching from afar. Now, it all depends on Qin Hao's performance. Duan Ziju extended his arms above his head and unleashed the power of a level 3 Yuan Venerate. His soul origin flame revolved around his body. With a sweep of his palm, an orange-yellow fireball blasted towards Xianyuan Wuji. The fireball got bigger and bigger along the way. This attack was much stronger than the one he had used to defeat Zhou Wudao's half-brother, Zhou Wuning. Is this the strength of the northern frontiers, war Monarch's son? I have to say that this is disappointing. Actually, you don't even need to get off the stage because this move, Duan Ziju will definitely lose. Xianyuan Wuji's face stiffened. His 5 fingers flexed and a golden glow burst out from his palm. Everyone saw the phantom of a dragon claw fly out from his palm. This phantom was unusually swift and fierce. With a bang, it brazenly pierced through Duan Ziju's fireball and headed straight for Duan Ziju's chest. Not good. While everyone outside the arena was screaming in shock, Duan Ziju had already sensed the formidable might of the phantom dragon claw. His face couldn't help but turn pale. Suddenly, the orange-yellow flames burning on his body started to climb frantically and soar into the sky. He unleashed his maximum cultivation in an attempt to block his opponent's attack. 7 ultimate magnificent blazing flame. 5th ultimate, open for me. Duan Ziju shouted with all his might as a 30-meter thick flame barrier formed around his body. Inside the barrier, 5 tyrannical orange-yellow flames revolved frantically. Duan Ziju's origin spirit is actually the magnificent blazing flame, which is ranked 9th on the exceptional flame list. Furthermore, it's the ultimate 7 ultimate magnificent blazing flame. Qin Hao couldn't help but be deeply shocked. It was no wonder that Duan Ziju's flames were so formidable. When he was still a profound sage, he could destroy Phoenix Glass Island with a casual sweep of his hand. Chapter 1023. Translator, Transin Editor. Transin you won't be disappointed. Every time its quality increased, its power would increase. The 7 ultimate magnificent flames was comparable to the 7th strongest flame on the exceptional flame list. Of course, it could only imitate exceptional flames that were of a lower grade than itself. For example, Qin Hao's red lotus tyrannical flame was ranked too high for it to imitate. Given Duan Ziju's current cultivation, he could only use the 5th ultimate magnificent flames. Even so, its power had reached a terrifying level. More than half of the vast arena that was almost 2,000 meters wide was covered in blazing flames, forming a sea of flames that surged furiously into the sky. The scorching high temperature that rose without end caused even the sun to dim in comparison. Sayogwa and the others, who were closer to the arena, were sweating profusely, except for Qin Hao, not to mention the commoners outside the arena. If they were to stand at the edge of the arena, they would have been burned to ashes long ago without even stepping into the sea of flames. As for Qin Hao, he had the stronger red lotus tyrannical flame, so he was basically immune to the temperature of the magnificent flames. No matter what, Duan Ziju's strength had already shaken everyone. Unfortunately, Qin Hao didn't feel relieved for Duan Ziju because of this, because Xianyuan Wuji's aura was even stronger. Bang! The phantom dragon claw rushed into the flame barrier without any hindrance. The 30-meter thick flame barrier didn't have any effect on the phantom dragon claw. Soon after, 5 bang 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 sound were heard. The 5 orange flames that Duan Ziju maintained in the flame barrier were all extinguished by the phantom dragon claw. In the end, the phantom dragon claw landed on Duan Ziju's chest. At this moment, Duan Ziju was sent flying like a kite with a broken string. Half of his clothes were torn to shreds, and the sea of fire on the arena was extinguished. Then, Duan Ziju fell off the arena. He turned his head and spat out a mouthful of bruised black blood. His eyes were filled with unprecedented fear. Whoosh! In an instant, countless figures stood up from the Imperial Tower and looked down dumbfounded. The first person to stand up was Duan Ziju's father, Daoyao's battle king, Duan Zhanfei. Duan Zhanfei's eyes were filled with disbelief and astonishment. Not only battle king, even Pavilion Master Jiang, Mansion Master Cui, and the head of Song family stretched out their necks and widely opened their eyes. Apparently, they had not imagined that Duan Ziju could be defeated by Xianyuan Wuji. Xianyuan Wuji's power was far out of the imagination of these old guys. What? Only one strike? And it was a very casual attack. On the stage was Qi Yuan. Murong Zijuan, who was in the palace, was also shocked. His heart was in turmoil. Of course, they were clear about the power of Duan Ziju. Actually, Duan Ziju was only a bit weaker than Murong Zijuan and Qi Yuan. However, he was easily defeated by Xianyuan Wuji. At this moment, Qi Yuan and Murong Zijuan were watching Xianyuan Wuji with full of fear and dread. Even Kill Million Eyes, who ranked 4th, couldn't help but clench his fists as he felt a great threat from Xianyuan Wuji. This person has the qualifications to fight me head-on. The only one who could remain calm was Zhou Wudao. Zhou Wudao licked his lips as he gazed at Xianyuan Wuji with amazement, as if he had discovered a new continent. Zhou Wudao couldn't help but tremble a bit, not out of fear, but out of excitement, because Zhou Wudao finally found a worthy opponent in this Emperor martial arts competition. Ziju, Battle King Duan Zhanfei, was stunned for a long time before he recovered his composure. With a flash, he appeared beside Duan Ziju. Qin Hao was not slow either. The moment Battle King arrived beside Duan Ziju, Qin Hao had also arrived. "I'm sorry, father. I've embarrassed you." Duan Ziju looked very painful as he clenched the place where he had been hit by Xianyuan Wuji. The flesh on his chest had turned dark and sunken in. He mustered his strength and tried to stand up. However, after struggling for a short while, he couldn't break free at all. From this, it could be seen that Xianyuan Wuji hadn't healed Duan Ziju's injuries. Even though Duan Ziju had been knocked off the stage, he was still firmly suppressed by Xianyuan Wuji. In father's heart, you will always be the best son. Duan Zhanfei's heart ached as he squatted down and poured his emperor qi into Duan Ziju's body to help him suppress his injuries. However, Duan Ziju's complexion didn't improve at all, which shocked Battle King once again. Xianyuan Wuji's lips curled into a proud smile as he sneered. Duan Ziju, you're holding on. Upon seeing this, Qin Hao reached out his hand and channeled the power of nether cleansing water into Duan Ziju's chest through his palm. The blackish-blue flesh on Duan Ziju's chest started to emanate a sacred, watery light. Duan Ziju immediately felt his body lighten and his pain lessen. However, the blackish-blue flesh on his chest still didn't fade away. It's the power of the soul. Qin Hao muttered to himself. Then his star system discovered that the illusory dragon claw was still inside Duan Ziju's body. The dragon claw was still emitting an evil dragon's roar as it continued to corrode Duan Ziju's internal organs. Get the hell out! Qin Hao roared as dragon roars echoed around him. His majesty was even stronger than the evil dragon claw in Duan Ziju's body. This was because Qin Hao's dragon soul belonged to a giant dragon. Following this, Qin Hao's palm, which was pressing down on Duan Ziju's chest, was suddenly covered by a layer of dense dragon scales. As he pulled with all his might, a wisp of white, soul-like gas was forcibly pulled out from Duan Ziju's body. Then, with a clench of his hand, Qin Hao forcefully shattered the claw-like gas. Duan Ziju's blackish-blue flesh gradually returned to normal as his sunken chest gradually returned to normal. Xianyuan Wuji's eyes suddenly lit up. He was surprised that Qin Hao could actually extract the dragon soul he had sent into Duan Ziju's body. I don't think I need to thank you. However, I have to remind you that that fellow is a mid-level, 5th-level Yuan Venerate. Qin Hao, you must be careful of him. His cultivation base is definitely not much weaker than Zhou Wudao's. Duan Ziju's aura was very weak. His pale palms were desperately clutching Qin Hao's arm as tears streamed down his cheeks. Qin Hao understood. Duan Ziju's eyes were filled with hope. He had pinned his unwillingness, his failure, and his hope for victory on Qin Hao. I will remember this. I won't let you down. Qin Hao's eyes were blazing with scarlet flames. Duan Ziju and Duan Zhanfei could clearly sense his strong and resolute will. There was no need for Qin Hao to say anything, as Xian Qiue had already arrived at the scene quietly. Old Prince, this is a senior from Western Liang. She is a monarch and is proficient in alchemy. With her around, Brother Ziju will be safe, and there won't be any problems. Qin Hao pointed at Xian Qiue and introduced her to the warlord. Thank you, fellow Taoist. The warlord cupped his fists and bowed solemnly. Although his cultivation base was at the Monarch grade, he was clearly far inferior to a Monarch grade alchemist in terms of how to take care of the severely injured Duan Ziju. Xian Qiue nodded and accompanied Duan Ziju to the warlord's mansion under the protection of a group of people. Kid, I hope you won't let down my son's good intentions. Chapter 1024. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations Yi Shuian versus Zheng Qingqi. Southern Region's proud god nations, Xianyuan Wuji wins. Gong Sun Changxing shouted. This indicated that Xianyuan Wuji had successfully defended his title and was qualified to challenge the second stage. Xianyuan Wuji is really not simple. He actually defeated and severely injured the son of the warlord in one move. Based on his cultivation, Emperor Wu's ranking shouldn't be so low. He should at least be above Crown Prince Moro. I wonder why Emperor Xiao lowered his ranking to such a low level. He has harmed Crown Prince Duan for nothing. Pavilion Master Jiang and Mansion Master Cui teased each other. They were both shocked by Xianyuan Wuji's cultivation and trying to sow discord between the warlord and Xiao. Xiao Yi sat quietly, abnormally quiet. He didn't need to explain to the warlord, nor was he afraid of Pavilion Master Jiang and Mansion Master Chui's provocation. The people of Northern Yin and Northern Qi didn't have good intentions. Xiao Yi and the warlord knew this very well. In fact, Xiao Yi's evaluation of Xianyuan Wuji's ranking was very reasonable. After all, if a martialist didn't use his source soul, even a monarch powerhouse wouldn't be able to see through it. After all, the source soul was born from the heavenly Tao. Xiao Yi could see through Xianyuan Wuji's cultivation at a glance. He was indeed a mid-tier, 5th-level Yuan Venerate. According to his rank and Xiao Yi's calculation of Yuan Han, he was given the 9th rank of the Emperor Martial Emperor. This rank was already very high. However, he hadn't expected Xianyuan Wuji's source soul to be so powerful. No matter what Emperor Zhao's intentions are, it's fine as long as Zijie doesn't face Xianyuan Wuji. Clan leader Song said. His thoughts were actually the same as Pavilion Master Zhang's. Based on the current situation, Zhang Zizai would most likely end up like Duan Ziju if he met Xianyuan Wuji. Even Mansion Master Chui was shaken by his 4th-ranked disciple, Thousand Blades. He was also praying that Thousand Blades wouldn't meet Xianyuan Wuji. On the arena, the competition continued. After defeating Duan Ziju in the first battle, Xianyuan Wuji had already surpassed Murong Zijuan in terms of ranking of Emperor strength. For the next match, Yi Shuihan flew straight onto the stage. Opposite him, Zheng Qinqi had a tacit understanding. When Yi Shuihan moved, he moved as well. Brother Shuihan, be careful, Xiaohua shouted nervously. With Duan Ziju as an example, it was enough to prove that the top 10 contestants of the Imperial Martial Academy possessed astonishing battle prowess. He no longer dared to underestimate anyone. However, Qin Hao did not look at Zheng Qinqi. Instead, he focused his red lotus fiery eyes and looked above the Imperial Tower. After defeating Duan Ziju, Xianyuan Wuji was qualified to challenge the second round and stood together with Murong Zijuan. After noticing Qin Hao's gaze, Xianyuan Wuji made a gesture of cutting his neck toward Qin Hao once again with a smile at his mouth corners. Creak! Qin Hao clenched his fists. No wonder Gongshu Jian was so afraid of Xianyuan Wuji and warned Qin Hao not to have a conflict with the same year and same month. Xianyuan Wuji is really powerful. Unfortunately, it was too late. The same year and same month had already died. Among the descendants of the Xianyuan family, there was actually a guy with a mutated dragon soul. Qin Hao thought carefully. The Xianyuan family's bloodline had always been inherited from the gravity source spirit. After all, their ancestor was the Gravity Emperor. However, Xianyuan Wuji was not like Xianyuan Wuhuang, who had inherited the gravity source spirit bloodline of their ancestor. In other words, this person had both the gravity source spirit and the mutated dragon soul. It was very likely that he had 2 souls. Thinking of this, Qin Hao felt that the difficulty of his challenge was getting higher and higher. On the other side, on the stage, Yi Shuihan and Zheng Qinqi exchanged a simple greeting and made their moves at the same time. The moment they made their moves, the battle entered its most intense state. At the same time, they revealed their strongest soul bodies. Water God descends, Yi Shuihan shouted. He unleashed the full power of a 3rd-level Yuan Venerate. A watery light that resembled the Milky Way poured down from the top of the sky and onto Yi Shuihan's body. Yi Shuihan was immediately immersed in a dazzling mercury light. At the moment, his body became even more well-proportioned and powerful. A set of sacred light armor dissipated along with the light and enveloped his body, making Yi Shuihan look like a divine soldier who had descended. He was mighty and unrestrained. In an instant, the entire arena was in an uproar. Thousands of young girls were frantically shouting Yi Shuihan's name. Many people were so excited by his handsome appearance that they fainted and were carried out of the Imperial Martial Plaza by the Imperial Guards in a flurry. Ha ha ha! My son really makes everyone fall for him the moment he appears. In a leather seating area, the Dragon Abyss Emperor Lord slapped his thigh and laughed heartily. Seeing Yi Shuhen's appearance was like seeing a younger version of himself. Emperor Lord, don't be happy too early. The Water Prince's opponent is no ordinary person. At that moment, the elusive old demon had unknowingly landed on the seat beside Yilong Yuan. This seat had been occupied by Xin Qiue just now. Xin Qiue had been ordered by Qin Hao to go to the Warlord Mansion to treat Duan Ziju's injuries. Oh, Yilong Yuan frowned. He didn't see anything special about the young man with the surname Zhang. He was at most a 4th-level Yuan Venerate, which was only 1 level higher than Yi Shuihan. However, Yi Shuihan's source spirit was the absolute overlord of water-type source spirits. Its status was even higher than Qin Hao's Red Lotus Fire on the Exceptional Flame list. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it was the ruler of all water. With the support of such a strong source spirit, a trivial difference of a single grade was not a problem at all. Based on the old demon's words, could Zheng Qinqi crush Yilong Yuan's son like how Xianyuan Wuji had crushed Duan Ziju? Although I don't know what his source spirit is, Second Master's intuition tells me that Shui Han might have met an old enemy this time. The old demon said mysteriously. As the Blood Emperor, his vision and judgment were naturally several levels higher than Yilong Yuan's. In fact, the old demon's intuition was right. When Zheng Qinqi saw Yi Shuhen's water god descending, he could not help but jump up. He lost his composure and pointed at Yi Shuihan, who was floating in the air, and said, "How can this be? Your source spirit is actually water? Aren't you asking for nothing? You've already seen it." Yi Shuihan rolled his eyes, and a light flashed in his hand, condensing a sharp water spear. He spun the sharp water spear twice in his hand. Whoosh, 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 as if being summoned by the water god. A huge sea appeared on Yi Shuihan's back. The huge sea was surging. Although it was floating in the air like a dream, it was so real that the millions of civilians in the Imperial Marshal Square were so scared that they fell to the ground. God's will? Is this God's will? Looking at the vast sea in the sky, Zheng Qinqi, who was standing on the stage, lowered his head and sighed. At this time, a large amount of dense white fog surged behind him. Also, Yi Shuihan opened his mouth wide. From the dense white fog, a 300-meter-long giant ship slowly appeared in front of everyone and gradually rose until it was suspended at the same height as Yi Shuihan. The deep sea versus the giant ship. Was it the deep sea that swallowed the giant ship? Or was it the giant ship that braved the wind and waves and sailed for thousands of miles and directly killed Yi Shuihan? Chapter 1025. Translator. Nioibo Studio Editor. Nioibo Studio Seasick. Interesting. Xiao, he rubbed his chin and looked at the deep sea and the giant ship that was still above the Imperial Tower with great interest. How could it be? Yilong Yuan stood up, stood halfway, and then slowly sat back. The ship was born in the sea. He knew that his son was in trouble. Even among all of Yilong Yuan's enemies, he had never seen a warrior with a ship's soul. In this aspect, he had no experience at all. Of course, it was impossible for him to teach Yi Shuihan the fighting skills. But Yilong Yuan still believed in his son's ability. What? Yi Shuihan watched as the giant ship slowly rose until it was level with him. At this moment, Zheng Qinqi was already standing on the bow of the giant ship. He stood proudly and exuded a natural and unrestrained aura. Yi Shuihan was truly shocked. Yi Shuihan took a deep breath and smiled. Your soul is a ship. It's really special. But haven't you heard the saying, water can carry a ship, but it can also capsize a ship? In this deep sea, I am the absolute master. Go! As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Shuihan waved the water spear in his hand forward. The deep sea behind him roared and set off a 100-meter-high wave. The waves piled on top of each other and crazily pushed forward. It was like an erupting flood, rushing toward the giant ship where Zheng Qinqi was, as if it was going to drown the ship in the sea. Water can carry a ship, but it can also capsize a ship. This saying is true. Unfortunately, it's not a ship under my feet. It's a strong ship that can cut through the waves. Zheng Qinqi roared and poured his primordial chi into the ship under his feet. The giant ship made a buzzing sound and rushed toward the 100-meter-high wave in front of it, moving faster and faster. This scene gave people a strong visual impact. The millions of people in the Imperial Marshal Square couldn't help holding their breath and staring at the sky. Boom! The hull of the ship crashed into the giant wave, and a towering splash burst out, shaking people's eardrums. Everyone saw that the huge wave that was rolling towards Zheng Qingqi was actually knocked away by his giant ship, creating a huge gap in the middle. Zheng Qingqi stepped on the strong ship under his feet through the gap and moved toward Yi Shuihan again. Crack! Yi Shuihan felt like a bolt of lightning had struck him. What a tough guy! Yi Shuihan had used at least 80% of his strength in the attack just now, but he was unable to damage the giant ship at all. No wonder you're one of the top 10 experts on the Martial Emperor list. If one attack is not enough, then I'll attack 10 times, 100 times. I've said it before. In this deep sea, I am the absolute ruler. Yi Shuihan's cultivation was a level lower than his opponent's, so his source spirit was naturally weaker. But in terms of grade, Yi Shuihan was full of confidence in himself. Therefore, he was prepared to bombard a few more huge waves. He did not believe that he would not be able to destroy Zheng Qingqi's ship. As Yi Shuihan spoke, he brandished the water spear in his hand. Swish! Swish! On Zheng Qingqi's path forward, towering waves rose again out of nowhere, like countless walls rising from the ground, blocking the path of the giant ship. After smashing through about 10 waves, the ship's speed slowed down significantly. Zheng Qingqi understood that he no longer had the power to shatter the remaining waves. Carp leaping over the Dragon Gate. Jump for me. However, this was not a problem for Zheng Qingqi. He waved his arm, and a ball of dazzling purple flame aura entered the giant ship under his feet. The giant ship seemed to have been injected with stimulants and gained new momentum. It leaped high along with the huge waves, drawing a beautiful arc in the air as it directly jumped over. After jumping over the first wave, it used the same method to jump over the second wave, the third wave, and even the fourth wave, constantly shortening the distance between it and Yi Shuihan. Moreover, during the jump, the giant ship's speed increased significantly. It was simply jumping faster and faster, full of spirituality. F***CK. It can even be done like this? Yi Shuihan widened his eyes. How is this a ship? It was simply a fish. Exclamations immediately sounded outside the arena. Although the fight between Yi Shuihan and Zheng Qingqi was not as amazing as when Xianyuan Wuji defeated Duan Ziju, it was still very gorgeous and visually pleasing to the eyes. It was a feast for the eyes. Brother Han, you have to make him rush over. Sayoba was a bit anxious. Of course I know. Yi Shuihan took a break and loudly replied. Even an idiot could clearly see that Zheng Qingqi's giant ship seemed to contain an earth-shattering power. If it was knocked over, the damage would be unbearable. 1,000 current vortex. Yi Shuihan deeply inserted the water spear into the sea formed by the source soul under his feet. At this moment, the sea was affected and waves were raised. Rapid vortexes appeared in front of the giant waves. Like traps with eyes, they were specially formed at the landing point of the giant ship. Yi Shuihan's control was very exquisite. F***CK. Zheng Qingqi's expression finally changed. Without paying attention, the moment the vortex appeared, he accidentally fell into it. His ship immediately began to crazily circle around the vortex. The scene was very funny. The vortexes created by Yi Shuihan were very large. Each one was dozens of meters wide. Although they were not enough to swallow the giant ship, they still trapped Zheng Qingqi. Chapter 1026. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Conquering the World. Haha. Yi Shuihan was overjoyed. It seems that I'm more skilled than you. Brother Qingqi, I'm sorry, but you can sink into oblivion. He waved the water spear, and the whirlpool that trapped Zheng Qingqi suddenly expanded. The towering waves collapsed at this moment, and the torrential seawater smashed into the whirlpool one after another. Zhang Qingqi's ship was smashed to the bottom of the sea, unable to turn over. "Well done, as expected of my son." Yi Longyuan cheered loudly. The old demon shook his head and was about to speak. At this moment, there was a loud bang. Everyone saw the giant ship that had fallen to the bottom of the sea, wrapped in a dazzling light, and rushed out again, causing a huge splash. Yi Longyuan's excited expression immediately froze on his face. "Fortunately, my ship is waterproof." Zhang Qingqi, who was dizzy from vomiting, scolded with a smile. He raised his right hand and slashed forward with all his strength. Whoosh! His arm slashed out a dazzling light, and the light split the seawater into two, revealing a broad road. At this moment, the hull of the giant ship flashed again, and a phantom ship was shaken out. This phantom ship was like a clone of the giant ship, and it rushed forward. After passing by, there was a series of explosions, and the remaining whirlpools created by Yi Xuehan were all destroyed. With that, Zhang Qingqi's soul ship set sail once more. "I can't even kill you like this. What a troublesome guy." Yi Xuehan's face twisted fiercely. "The whirlpools that the world trembles in fear are the waterways that I have conquered. Brother Xuehan, you'd better admit defeat. There is no sea that my ship can't cross, and there is no shore that I can't reach. You can't beat me." Zhang Qingqi said proudly with his hands behind his back. At the same time, 3 surging water pillars spurted out from the stern of his giant ship, like a whale breathing. After the 3 water pillars spurted out, the size of the giant ship expanded again, from 1,000 feet to 1,000 feet long. It was as majestic as a giant mountain, and it gave people a heavy sense of oppression. It was simply indestructible. Moreover, the ship's speed became even faster, and it was infinitely close to Yi Xuehan's range. It meant that Zhang Qingqi was about to use his strongest move, devastation of the world. Yi Xuehan sensed the incoming threat and unleashed the power of the water god within his body. He began to summon the water elements between heaven and earth. At this moment, countless motes of light could be seen gathering towards Yi Xuehan from the distant lake, the city's canals, the roadside flowers, and even the bodies of some martial artists. As long as it was a cultivator who cultivated a water-type cultivation technique or had a water-type source spirit, they would not be able to control their strength and would be passively deprived. "What happened? My primordial qi is disappearing." Many martial artists cried out in fear. Yi Longyuan gave birth to an amazing son. If this child grows up, he will definitely become a domineering lord. At this moment, the emperor stage Xiao, he could clearly feel the flow of water spirit energy between heaven and earth. Yi Xuehan relied on his own strength to mobilize the water essence of all things for his own use. The strength of his soul force could be said to be monstrous. In the future, defending the western Luo Shui wouldn't be a problem at all. If Yi Xuehan was an ambitious ruler and worked hard to govern, it was entirely possible for him to lead the Luo Shui Empire to unprecedented heights. At this moment, Xiao Yi was really envious of Yi Longyuan. Duan Zhanfei, who was beside him, nodded at the same time. He believed Xiao Yi's words without a doubt. Compared to Yi Xuehan, even his son, Duan Ziju, was inferior. At this moment, Yi Xuehan, who was high up in the sky, received the help of the water essence of all things in heaven and earth. His cultivation base had temporarily broken through and risen to the beginner level of the 4th level Yuan Venerate, which was the same as Zhang Qingqi's cultivation base. He took the lead to attack. With a wave of his water spear, howls of wild beasts and savages could be heard from the sea. The millions of spectators below looked up in shock and saw countless monsters emerging from the sea and crawling up one after another. There were beast-shaped and human-shaped monsters that were all condensed from seawater. Each of them was hundreds of meters tall and densely packed together like a magnificent army. Their imposing manner was magnificent as they rushed frantically toward the giant ship that was rushing over. Among them, The most burly one was the water puppet standing behind Yi Shuihan. This water puppet was 500 zhang tall, like an ancient giant, and its body seemed to be covered in armor. Overall, it looked similar to Yi Shuihan. This was the strongest intent of the water god's descent that Yi Shuihan had comprehended after reaching the venerate grade, devastation of the world. As long as there was water, he could create countless water puppets to fight for him. Zhang Qingqi's eyes were red as he also fell into a frenzy. He clenched his fists and roared when he saw the magnificent army of soldiers and aquatic beasts rushing toward his ship. The scene was so shocking that it made him clench his fists and roar. At the same time, those extremely tall soldiers and aquatic beasts collided with the giant ship one after another. Nearly 100 soldiers and aquatic beasts were smashed to smithereens and disappeared without a trace. However, Zhang Qingqi's giant ship had also become tattered. Pieces of shattered wooden planks flew out of the hull and were submerged in the sea. In an instant, the giant ship was riddled with holes and was already tottering and disintegrating before it could even reach Yi Shuihan. In the end, I still won. Go! Chapter 10:27. Translator. Nioibo Studio Editor. Nioibo, Studio M in a hurry as the water spear flew. It sucked in all the seawater and expanded to the size of a giant pillar. It pierced through Zhang Qingqi's dilapidated ship and completely destroyed it, before the audience could cheer in unison. At this moment, a dazzling light flew out from the wreckage of the giant ship like an arrow. It was as fast as lightning and struck Yi Shuihan's chest. It was so fast that the audience could only see it clearly after Yi Shuihan flew up with heavy injuries. It turned out that it was a small boat, and Zhang Qingqi was standing in front of it. He abandoned the ship and used the cicada shell shedding technique to compress all the power of the ship into the small boat, giving Yi Shuihan such a shocking blow. Puff! Yi Shuihan spat out blood, and the water god armor on his body shattered into pieces. All the bones in his body were broken, and he fell to the ground involuntarily. The moment he landed, the giant water puppet standing behind him clenched its mountain-like fists together and slammed heavily onto Zhang Qingqi's body. Just like Yi Shuihan, Zhang Qingqi also spat out a mouthful of blood. He somersaulted and fell to the bottom of the battle arena. The two of them ended in a draw. This result caught the audience off guard. What a powerful impact! After Yi Shuihan fell to the ground, he spat out a few more mouthfuls of blood and staggered to his feet. His hair was messy and he looked very embarrassed. His eyes were filled with disbelief at Zhang Qingqi's attack. Looking at his feet below the fighting ring, Yi Shuihan shook his head and smiled bitterly. He knew that he had lost. He could no longer display his talent in the Emperor Martial Arts competition and had completely lost the right to participate. What a terrifying water soul power! Zhang Qingqi was as shocked as Yi Shuihan. His face was swollen like a bun, and a few of his teeth had fallen out. Then he shook his head and smiled bitterly. He was dispirited. He had also lost the right to participate in the competition. I'm sorry, boss. I really tried my best. Yi Shuihan glanced helplessly at Qin Hao's position. He was rather angry as well. He twisted his interspatial ring with his left hand and shouted at Zhang Qingqi, "Hey, brother Qingqi, I actually have a mid-tier Exalt artifact in my interspatial ring. Unfortunately, I didn't have the time to show it to you." He meant that he still had a trump card that he had not used. If he had used his 40-meter-long saber, the result might not have been the same. Zhang Qingqi was a little surprised. He patted the pouch on the other hand. Brother Qingqi, I also have a magic treasure in the pouch. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to show it to you. Thump. Yi Shuihan Studio, Yi Shuihan. Zhang Qingqi Studio, Zhang Qingqi also, Zhang Qingqi. Then Yi Studio Li, Qin Hao Yin Tang, and Li, Nin Dragon Studio. They Yi Yu, and House Studio of. They Yi Studio, both with Studio, Yi Lu, both Yi Yi. But Yi Yi Air, AM, King Yi, Lian, Se Yi. Dad, I've embarrassed you. Yi Shuihan came to the leather seating area, pulled a chair, and sat at the side of Yi Longyuan. Yi Longyuan did not say anything. Instead, he nodded at Yi Shuihan with a gratified look and patted his son's shoulder with his big hand. Don't be discouraged, brother Shuihan. Your battle was very exciting. Even Xiao Yi was impressed. He seemed to admire you. The old demon said. Next, it's my disciple, Little Melon, and Qin Hao's performance. Don't worry. I can't guarantee Qin Hao's battle, but my disciple, Little Melon, will not let you down. The drunkard took off the wine gourd on his waist and took a sip. Dan Xian snatched the gourd and glared at the drunkard. Then, he took a sip himself. Yi Shuihan, Zhang Qingqi, it's a draw. Although it's a draw, both of you have lost the right to participate in the competition. It's really unlucky. Poor you two. You won't have the chance to be favored by our princess. Let's welcome the next contestant to the stage. Gongsun Changxing's shout came from the Imperial Tower. Lucho took the lead and flew up impatiently. Once he went up the stage, Qin Hao naturally had to go up as well. However, Qin Hao was unexpectedly stopped by Song Ziang. Song Ziang's face was full of apology. He said, I'm sorry, brother Qin Hao. I'm in a hurry. Let me do it. But don't worry, I promise I'll finish my battle in half an hour. After saying that, Song Ziang did not give Qin Hao a chance to reply. He stamped his foot and floated up to the towering stage. What's going on? Lu Chou stared at him. His opponent was Qin Hao. I'm in a hurry. I'll fight this round. Please go back to where you came from. Of course, if you don't want to go back, I can send you back, Song Ziang said with a straight face. Then, he stared at Song Zijia, who was below the stage. Lu Chao's face trembled with anger. He had no choice but to return to his original position, looking very awkward. He only wanted to kill Qin Hao. He did not want to waste his energy on others. Zijia, don't hold back. The Song family head roared sternly, as if the life of his eldest son, Song Zhang, did not matter at all. Song Zijia saw this and stamped his foot on the ground. He turned into a ray of light and descended in front of Song Ziang. This was a battle between the two brothers. This battle concerned the fate of the Song family. Chapter 1028. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations, should he shout or not? No superfluous words. The two of them made their moves almost at the same time, transforming into two streaks of light that soared into the sky. Just like the scene when Song Ziang had killed Ling Quan, the two streaks of light collided back and forth in the sky, chasing each other, splitting and merging, causing the void to rumble. This rumbling sound was like thunder rolling over the heads of the commoners, who couldn't help but feel terrified. The Song family was indeed a prestigious family in northern Yen. The direct descendants of the family all had amazing bloodlines and monstrous cultivations. The marshalists standing on the Imperial Marshal Plaza were watching the battle between Song Ziang and Song Zijia without blinking. It seemed like the streaks of light that the brothers transformed into were very special. Qin Hao also felt this. After transforming into streaks of light, both Song Ziang and Song Zijia's speed, power, and explosive power would increase by more than 3 times. Qin Hao was almost certain that the streaks of light were a unique fighting style of the Song family. Only by transforming into streaks of light could one activate the high-end martial techniques cultivated by the Song family. The streaks of light were undoubtedly the source souls of Song Ziang and Song Zijia. Just as Song Zhang had said, the battle between the two brothers didn't last long. In fact, such a high-intensity battle didn't allow them to remain in a stalemate. In less than a quarter of an hour, one streak of light was shot down by the other. The person who had fallen was Song Ziang. Song Ziang's cultivation was at the beginner level of the 3rd level Yuan Venerate. However, his half-brother, Song Zijia, had been born with abundant cultivation resources. He had been pampered by his father, doted on by his mother, and secretly given benefits by the elders. Almost half of the Song family's elixirs had been used on Song Zijia. Even though he was younger than Song Zijia, his cultivation had reached the peak of the 4th level Yuan Venerate. Even though they had the same type of source soul, The difference in their cultivation levels made it impossible for Song Ziang to be a match for Song Zijie. Song Ziang's clothes were tattered, and his body was covered in fist marks. His chest, ribs, and other places had all caved in from the other party's punches. He vomited blood and looked terrible. On the other hand, Song Zijie's clothes were clean, and he was practically unscathed. Boom! There was an earth-shattering sound. Song Zijie stepped on Song Ziang's arched body and fell heavily onto the arena from the sky. The huge arena that had been reinforced by 10 primitive emperors couldn't help but shake at this moment, stirring up a layer of dust. Fine spiderwebs appeared in an area of about 10 meters on the arena, especially the place where Song Ziyang landed. It was actually half a foot deep. It could be seen how great the strength of Song Zijie's kick was. In the Imperial Tower, clan leader Song looked at the scene in front of him, and the stone that was hanging in his heart calmed down. He leisurely stroked his goatee. He first looked at Song Zijie, who was stepping on Song Ziyang, and nodded in satisfaction. Then he glanced at Song Ziyang, who was lying on the ground, his eyes cold. Even if he's the eldest son of the Song family and has the same noble bloodline and powerful cultivation technique as me, so what? You're still not my match. In the past, I could trample you beneath my feet. Today, I will still trample you beneath my feet. You want to compete with me for the position of patriarch? Wishful thinking. Song Zijie lowered his head and looked at his elder brother, who was lying on the ground. His mouth was filled with malicious contempt. In the Imperial Tower, Ling Xiaoxue couldn't help but turn her head to the side, her 2 hands clutching the corner of her skirt tightly. After all, that man who was lying on the ground was someone she once loved. Cough, cough. Song Ziyang coughed out 2 mouthfuls of blood clots, his face pale. Enduring the pain, he forced a smile and said, Zijie, if I wasn't ostracized by that group of stubborn old men in the family and didn't get the cultivation resources I should have, ask yourself honestly, how could you win so easily? It was fine if he embezzled cultivation resources. If that old ancestor of the family wasn't still alive and pitted Song Ziyang. In fact, clan leader Song wouldn't have given Song Ziyang the chance to cultivate the family's cultivation technique. Stop talking nonsense. A loss is a loss. Don't find excuses to flatter yourself and make it seem like I won with an unfair advantage. Song Zijie's foot fiercely pressed down. Along with this, the blood at the corner of Song Ziyang's mouth flowed faster. If you were my elder brother, I would have kicked you to death. Now I'll give you a chance. In front of Father, the family elders, and Emperor Shao, you can announce to half of the heroes of the continent that you, Song Ziyang, are inferior to me. As long as you shout it out, I'll let you go. Otherwise, creak. Song Zijie bent down and cursed viciously. I'll crush your sea of qi and break all your meridians. I'll turn you into a cripple. Yes, if I wasn't your elder brother, after killing me, you'll have to bear the infamy and it'll be difficult for you to take the position of clan leader. Otherwise, you'd be happy to get rid of me. Song Ziyang smiled bitterly. How could he not see through his younger brother's intentions? But unfortunately, Song Zijie was just a little bit away from victory. Are you going to shout or not? Song Zijie's foot pressed down harder. His boots sank into Song Ziyang's flesh, and primordial qi was generated from the soles of his feet. In response, Song Ziyang shook his head. Are you forcing me? Creak. Song Zijie's foot suddenly sank. With a crack, it crushed 2 of Song Ziyang's ribs. If it sank any further, it would crush his internal organs. He wasn't joking. However, Song Ziyang still shook his head. Enough. Chapter 1029. 7 heavenly stars flash. Xiao Shui, you're crying. Are you crying for me? Song Ziyang forced a warm smile and looked at Ling Xiaoxue affectionately. At this moment, he understood that in her heart, she had always been worried about him. Lin Xiaoxue wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes. She did not look at Ziang and said to Zijie, you have already knocked him down. You can just throw him off the stage. Why do you have to publicly humiliate him? Who do you think you are? Why do you have to criticize me? Song Zijie turned around and reprimanded. How dare you? Gongsun Changxing's voice could be heard from the royal tower. Lin Xiaoxue is the acting clan leader of the Lingyun sect of Great Liao. She is also the imperial advisor. Naturally, she has the right to express her personal opinion on the competition and test the character of the participants for the princess. Song Zijie's eyes twitched. He knew that he couldn't do anything to Ling Xiaoxue. However, his feet didn't leave Song Ziyang's body. Clearly, he treated Ling Xiaoxue as heir. Cough, cough. Xiaoxue, I'm very touched that you came down. It proves that you still have me in your heart. But actually, there's no need for that, because I haven't lost yet. Song Ziyang trembled and propped up his upper body. Weak purple flames flowed around his body as he tried to struggle. Ha ha ha. Song Zijie raised his head and laughed. You were beaten to the point where you couldn't even fight back. You still have the face to speak without thinking. When he raised his head, Song Zijie's words were stuck in his throat. He was shocked to see that there was a blinding light above his head. It was like a star. Then swoosh, 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 6 balls of light appeared one by one. Including the one just now, there were 7 balls. These 7 balls of light were arranged in a very orderly manner. They were like the Big Dipper hanging in the sky, emitting a blinding light. Furthermore, the light flashed more and more intensely. The indescribable pressure caused the millions of people below to feel their scalps go numb, even though they were thousands of meters away. Song Zijie's eyes were filled with fear. He looked at the 7 balls of light, and his body began to tremble uncontrollably. What's that? Many people raised their heads in confusion. Heavens, it's the 7 heavenly flashes. An elder of the Song family pointed to the sky and let out a horrified cry. The Northern Yensong family had a signature martial art called the Star Spirit Martial Manual. The Star Spirit Martial Manual was a heaven-grade middle-tier martial skill. Its might was world-shocking. Those who do not have the direct bloodline of the clan will not be taught. The 7 heavenly astral flashes happen to be the 7th level of the Star Soul Martial Codex. The patriarch of the Song family, who is also the father of Song Zhang and Song Zijie, had only cultivated the Star Soul Martial Hall to the 7th stage of the 7 heavenly astral flash. From this, it could be seen how difficult it was to cultivate and how powerful the power it could unleash was. Unless it was a matter of clan extermination, Patriarch Song would not easily make a move. At this moment, the 7 heavenly flashes had arrived above the Imperial Martial Square. How is this possible? Patriarch Song stood up in shock. The shock and fear in his heart was no less than that of Song Zijie, who was stepping on Song Ziyang. However, he did not have time to be shocked. Taking advantage of Song Zijie's dazed state, Song Zhang's Yuan Venerate aura erupted once again. He forcefully broke away from Song Zijie's feet and streaked across the sky, carrying Lin Xiaoxue away from Song Zijie. Buzz, 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 one after another, rumbling sounds descended from the sky. The earth-shattering power mixed within the 7 rays of light caused the earth to tremble and the sky to change color. All of the rays of light fell on Song Zijie's head. When the first ray of starlight fell, Song Zijie only had time to twist his body slightly and dodge it. Even so, he was sent flying by the aftermath of the first ray of starlight. His entire body seemed to have changed shape. It was elongated and distorted as it flew into the air. The place where the first ray of starlight landed had actually blasted a black hole the size of a leg in the battle arena that was reinforced by 10 Yuan Venerates. Then, Song Zijie, who was sent flying, was completely bombarded by the remaining 6 rays of starlight. Bursts of explosions shook the surroundings. Bursts of light were so dazzling that people could not open their eyes. Millions of people could only hear Song Zijie's heart-wrenching screams. After the power of the 7 heavenly flashes, 7 deep black holes appeared on the battle arena. The edges of the stage were also shattered. Song Zijie's body was in tatters as he lay in the middle of the 7 deep holes. Although he was not missing an arm or a leg, his aura was weaker than an ordinary person's. He could only stare at Song Ziyang with bloodshot eyes. He did not even have the strength to move his fingers. Boom! The arena was like a thunderstorm. Song Xiang's counterattack had actually turned Song Zijia, who was at his peak, into a cripple. He was almost 2 realms weaker than Song Zijia. The Song family's 7 heavenly flashes was really terrifying. Ling Xiaoxue seemed to be quite frightened. Looking at Song Zijia, who was flaunting his prowess in front of her a moment ago, but was now covered in wounds, her eyes were filled with disbelief. Seeing this, Song Xiang patted Ling Xiaoxue's head. Then, he slowly walked in front of Song Zijia. He lowered his head and said, "Zijia, even if you and I have the same bloodline, have the same origin spirit, even if Father and the elders dote on you and let you choose any of the family's treasures and give you priority in all the elixirs, I still do not lose to you in the slightest." Boom. Chapter 1030. Translator, Nioibo Studio Editor. Nioibo, studio murdering him after a long time. Song Zijia could not even struggle to open his mouth. Then he lay down obediently. His whole body was full of sorrow and desolation. Song Ziyang smiled. He bent down and looked at his younger brother seriously. "I can see the disdain in your eyes. You're not willing to accept it, right? Moreover, they will think that I can laugh without restraint now, because I will sit on the position of the next patriarch of the Song clan and use my actions to win the approval of the elders and father." Song Ziyang glanced at the head of the Song family who was standing in the royal tower. There was no joy on the Song family head's face. There was only deep concern for Song Zijia in his eyes. He clenched his fists and gritted his teeth, as if he wanted to kill his eldest son who had won. Song Ziyang smiled bitterly in his heart. They were both sons, but his father's attitude towards him and Song Zijia was completely different. If it was Zijia who won, then his father would definitely be like a puff of wind right now. He would definitely show off wantonly in front of all the seniors and praise how extraordinary his younger brother's natural talent was. Song Ziyang flicked a tear from the corner of his eye. His father did not care about him at all. It did not matter. He did not need it anymore, not anymore. He suddenly stood up and faced Xiao Yi in the royal tower. In front of half of the heroes of the continent, he shouted, "Although I won, I do not want to continue the competition, nor do I want to marry the princess. Of course, I have no interest in the position of the head of the Song family." Song Ziyang's eyes were clearly saying, "The position of the head of the family? I don't care about it at all." What? There was a commotion in the royal tower. Let's not talk about the successor of the Song family. Song Ziyang had already committed a crime of treason by saying that he did not want to marry the princess. From the perspective of the Daoyao soldiers, Song Ziyang came to the competition but did not want to marry the princess. Was he looking down on Princess Jingwe? Looking down on Emperor Shao? Looking down on the Daoyao Empire? Bastard, how dare you? The Song family head was furious. He immediately condensed a ball of platinum emperor-level yuan qi in his palm. If Xiaoyi had not said anything, he would have killed Song Ziyang. Oh, participating in the imperial martial competition, but not marrying my daughter. Song Ziyang, what do you want? Xiaoyi wasn't angry at all and asked with a smile. I just want to prove myself. I want to prove that I, Song Ziyang, am not weaker than any of the disciples that the clan has focused on nurturing. Song Ziyang's tone was sonorous and forceful. He emphasized the words focus on nurturing. It was obvious that he was saying this for his father and the clan elders to hear. Then, I would like to take this opportunity, in the presence of the wise and mighty Emperor Shao, the distinguished seniors present, and the vast number of martial arts friends. I, Song Zhang, the eldest son of the Song family of Northern Yin, renounce my family and sever all ties with Song Hongxiao, the head of the Song family, and have nothing to do with the Song family. I swear by my blood that I will destroy my own cultivation. Pung. After Song Ziyang finished speaking, the yuan qi in his body surged, shattering his martial veins and scattering his cultivation. Blood flowed out from his clothes and quickly dyed the ground red. This scene caused Xiao Yi to frown. Clan head Song, as well as the defeated Song Zijia, were completely caught off guard. Their eyes widened in shock. My cultivation is gone, and I will never use the martial arts of the Song family for the rest of my life. I will also not impart my martial arts to others. If I go against my words, I will be destroyed by the heavens. Song Ziyang's body trembled violently. His facial features were contorted in agony, and he was about to lose his balance and fall to the ground. Almost instinctively, Ling Xiaoxue rushed to support him. Vile spawn, you are indeed a vile spawn. Oomph. Clan leader Song was so angry that his face turned green. However, he didn't refuse. Haha, since Song Hongxiao has no objections, I will be your witness. Xiaoyi nodded and looked at Song Hongxiao with disdain. Also, I have one more thing to ask of you, Emperor Xiao, for permission. Song Ziyang's tone was pleading. Speak. Xiao Yi went straight to the point. I want to propose to Ling Xiaoxue, the acting head of the Lingyun School, the state preceptor at her country, and the acting head of the Lingyun School. Song Ziyang mustered all his courage. Boom! This time, the entire Imperial Martial Square was in an uproar. Song Ziyang's performance was really surprising, one wave after another. When he finished speaking, the minds of about 80% of the spectators went blank, including Xiao Yi himself. Ling Xiaoxue couldn't help but panic. She swore that she had never thought that Song Ziyang would propose to her in such a solemn situation. Thump! Song Ziyang knelt on one knee in front of Ling Xiaoxue and looked up at her with sincere eyes. Sure, please allow me to protect you for the rest of my life, for all eternity, okay? Marry me. Marry him. Xiaobo raised his arm and shouted. He couldn't hold it in any longer. Marry him. Marry him. Marry him. Marry him. In an instant, a chorus of cheers sounded from every corner of the Imperial Martial Square. It was as if a wave had been lifted and could no longer be controlled, reverberating wave after wave. Not only were the commoners shouting, but the Imperial Guards of Daliao also pointed their spears above their heads, cheering for Song Ziyang's heroism. Many girls in the square were moved to tears and were full of envy for Ling Xiaoxue. You are finally a man for once. Chapter 1031. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation can't agree. You won the competition, but you gave up the chance to challenge the top 3. You didn't marry my princess, but proposed to the state preceptor of Daliao. Song Ziyang, how dare you say that? Xiao Li said jokingly. His tone was reproachful, but there was no anger on his face. Instead, there was a hint of admiration. He felt that with Song Ziyang's character, he had the qualifications to pursue his daughter. Unfortunately, Xiao Han already had someone in his heart. Emperor Xiao, please forgive me. I hope you can grant me my wish. Song Ziyang shouted. You destroyed your own future. How could I have given birth to such a narrow-minded and useless bastard like you? Song Hongxiao pointed at Song Ziyang and scolded him. Xiao Yi was not angry, but he was. Xiao Yi pondered for a few seconds and replied loudly. Song Ziyang, although I'm the martial emperor of Liao and can control the life and death of thousands of people, I have no right to interfere with other people's wishes or restrict their freedom. Your proposal depends on whether Miss Ling agrees or not. I can't make the decision. Xiao Yi was very open-minded. As he finished speaking, the eyes of all the people in the Imperial Martial Square were focused on Ling Xiaoxue. Everyone knew that Song Ziyang gave up the competition, destroyed his own cultivation, and even left the Song family for Ling Xiaoxue. Now, they wanted to see what she would do. Ling Xiaoxue was uneasy. She kept stepping back and turned her face to the side. I'm sorry, I can't agree. Crack. Song Ziyang was shocked, as if he was struck by lightning. His lips trembled. Why? Don't tell me. You dislike me? Song Ziyang had lost all his cultivation and became an ordinary person. He was no longer the genius of Beijiang. No, how can you think like that? I, Ling Xiaoxue, am not that kind of person. It's because the scene of Ling Xiaoxue's death appeared in her mind. That scene would always be a thorn in her heart. It was an obstacle that she could not overcome. Song Zhang killed her grandfather. If she agreed, how could she face her family in the netherworld? Sigh. Qin Hao sighed deeply. He felt that it was time for him to step out and help Song Ziyang. Slowly taking a few steps forward, Qin Hao raised his head and shouted towards the stage. Xiao Shui, there's something I need to tell you. After the death of Ling Quan's sect master, the sect fell into a dangerous situation. It was Song Ziyang who privately suggested to me that we move the sect into Lingtai City and temporarily stay under the Jiang Mansion to ensure our safety. Furthermore, before the Ling Quan sect master died, he seemed to have said something to Song Ziyang. Although I didn't hear it, I guessed that old sect master Ling was willing to die, which was why Song Ziyang didn't hesitate to kill him. I'm afraid there's a hidden reason behind all of this. With Song Ziyang's intelligence, he was well aware of the consequences of killing Ling Quan. That would push him and Ling Xiaoxue to the opposite side. But he still made a move. This meant that there was more to it than met the eye. It was possible that Song Ziyang had sought out Ling Quan in advance before the incident, and the two of them had conspired to play this game of chess. Using Ling Quan's head in exchange for Song Ziyang's contribution, he laid the groundwork for him to leave the Song family today. Ling Quan also used his own life as the price in exchange for his granddaughter's happiness, allowing Song Ziyang and Ling Xiaoxue to be together. Of course, this was only Qin Hao's personal guess. Although it was just a guess, it wasn't far from the truth. Only Song Ziyang himself knew whether it was true or not. How could this be? Ling Xiaoxue was shocked. Grandfather was willing to die, right? Song Ziyang, say something? She asked Song Ziyang with her eyes, but Song Ziyang lowered his head and didn't dare to make a sound. It was as if he was using his actions to agree. That's why Brother Ziyang can leave the Song family today. I hope you don't disappoint old sect Master Ling's good intentions. Qin Hao couldn't help but sigh in admiration. Old man Ling had great foresight and foresight. Xiao Shui, can you promise me? Song Ziyang's eyes were red as he raised his head and begged. Ling Xiaoxue hugged her head and sobbed. After hearing Qin Hao's explanation, although she could filter out the truth, she couldn't accept reality. She shook her head and continued. Even so, I still can't promise you. Xiao Shui, don't torture me anymore, and don't torture yourself. Promise me to take care of you. This is your grandfather's last wish. Song Ziyang cried. But I'm not good enough for you. I'll drag you down. Ling Xiaoxue shouted with all her might. She was terminally ill and didn't have long to live. If they loved each other, how could they bear to leave Song Ziyang alone? That would be too irresponsible and too cruel. I don't mind. Song Ziyang's kneeling body moved forward a few steps. This scene made everyone envious and sad. They could all see that the two were truly in love. Unfortunately, the heavens weren't on their side. Cough, cough, Xiao Shui. There's another thing I want to tell you. In fact, I've already completely cured your innate weakness. I'm 100% sure that I can turn you back into a normal person and let you be together with Brother Ziyang. Qin Hao's words floated up the stage like the lazy voice of heaven. Even though the medicine used to treat Ling Xiaoxue had been eaten by his traitorous disciple, Jiang Fan. However, when Qin Hao was beaten to a pulp on Mount Lanchuan and only half of his body was left, he instantly thought it through. Wasn't the medicine with the strongest vitality in the world his own blood? Qin Hao's demigod blood was countless times stronger than blue silver grass. It was the most suitable medicine. Chapter 1032. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation Marshal Emperor Xing Hunqin Hao smiled and nodded. Master is mighty, Jiang Fan shouted excitedly in the Imperial Tower. Sect leader is mighty. Sect leader is too awesome. Even the congenital exhaustion disease can be cured. It is equivalent to helping people be reborn. He is indeed my idol. Xiao Jiu's face was full of admiration. Dan Xian, who was next to him, stroked his beard proudly. Qinyan shook his head with a smile. His distant cousin was a rare genius and unfathomable. Xiao Shui, Did you hear that? Qin Hao can cure your congenital exhaustion disease. He is 100% sure that he can cure you. Song Zhang turned around and held Ling Xiaoshue's hands tightly. At this moment, he had completely forgotten about the proposal. There was only happiness on his face. Yes, Xiaoshue, a good match is hard to come by. You have to grasp the happiness in front of you. Song Ziyang is a person worth trusting. If you miss it, it may be a lifetime. In the midst of their astonishment, a voice that was as gentle as water streaked across everyone's hearts. It was clear, beautiful, and melodious. It was so pleasant to listen to. Looking in the direction of the voice, a snow-white figure appeared in the imperial tower, accompanied by Kay. Her appearance was covered by a white veil, but even so, one could still see her spirited eyebrows and bright eyes. Her figure was like a saintess from the 9 heavens who had descended to the mortal world. Her temperament made ordinary women feel ashamed of themselves. She was the daughter of Emperor Shao, the future ruler of the empire, Princess Jingwei. It's the princess. So beautiful. Greetings, Your Highness. Greetings, Your Highness. Whoosh. The warriors who came from afar saluted in the direction of Shaohan. Daliao's imperial guards all knelt down. The scene was extremely sensational. Xiaoyi could not help but pat his thigh and smile. His daughter's aura was actually better than his. The moment Shaohan appeared, he immediately attracted the attention of Zhou Wudao, Xinyuan Wuji, and the others. As a result, their faces turned hot as they moved closer to Shaohan uncontrollably. As one of the top geniuses in the southern region and the eastern continent, he had seen countless women. However, even the princess of the southern region and the holy maiden of the eastern continent could not be compared to Shaohan. However, Shaohan didn't even throw a glance at Zhou Wudao, kill thousands of knives, Xinyuan Wuji, and Murong Zijuan. Instead, he just looked straight at Qin Hao's direction with a smile. Zhou Wudao's face instantly turned gloomy, and he quietly clenched his fists. In the past, he had questioned whether it was worth it for him to travel all the way from the East Continent. When he saw Shaohan, he had an answer. Worth it. From this moment on, he was certain that he had fallen in love with Daliao's Princess Jingwei, even though he had yet to see Shaohan's appearance. No need to be so courteous. I believe that everyone is waiting for Miss Ling's reply like me, right? Shaohan waved his hand downwards, allowing the martial artists and soldiers who admired him to gather together. Once again, he shifted the focus of attention from himself to the battle arena. At this moment, Shaohan was quite helpless. He seemed to have overdone himself and had stolen the limelight from Ling Xiaoshue and Song Ziyang. Miss Ling, quickly say yes to Brother Song. Brother Song is a proud and unyielding man. I admire you. A good man that is hard to come by in 1,000 years. Don't miss it. Thousands of people began to shout. They all wanted to follow Princess Jingyue's wishes and win her favor. Xiaoshue, say yes. Seeing this, Song Zhang knelt down on one knee again. I promise. I promise you. Ling Xiaoshue smiled like a flower. Finally, tears of happiness fell from her eyes, and she threw herself into Song Zhang's warm embrace. She had been waiting for this moment for too long. But suddenly, this warm and romantic scene was shattered by a shocking scene in the distant sky. Before the crowd could cheer for Ling Xiaoshue and Song Zhang, a powerful ray of light, mixed with dark clouds and lightning, shot from the horizon and hovered 1,000 meters above the Imperial Marshal Plaza. Then, space seemed to be torn apart. From the dark clouds, a huge and shockingly old hand reached out. When this hand appeared, an invisible emperor-level pressure pressed down on the heads of the millions of people. Apart from Shao, Yi, and the warlord, no one could move at all. The old hand moved very quickly. In an instant, it reached the battle arena and forcefully pushed away Ling Xiaoshue, who was hugging Song Ziyang. Ignoring Song Ziyang's desperate cries and struggles, the hand held him firmly and pulled him into the dark clouds. As a man of the Song family, this emperor's blood flows in your veins. Without my consent, how dare you act so wantonly and leave the family? A dignified, terrifying, An angry voice rang out from the dark clouds. Then, the dark clouds flashed and disappeared in the sky, as if they had never been there. After the dark clouds disappeared, whether it was the commoners, the Imperial Guards, or the strong ones like Pavilion Master Jiang, Mansion Master Chui, and Yilong Yuan, their clothes were all soaked in sweat. The pressure brought by the appearance of the giant hand reminded everyone that Emperor Yuan, whose cultivation was not inferior to Shao Yi, had personally arrived at Daliao's imperial city. This Emperor Yuan was the living ancestor of the Song family, Martial Emperor Xinghun. At this moment, Shao Yi's face was very ugly. His pair of big hands made 10 deep marks on the armrest of the dragon, throne made of golden dragonstone. No matter what the reason was, Martial Emperor Xinghun had already offended Shao Yi's dignity by taking Shao Yi away so rudely. It was clearly a slap to Shao Yi's face. Chapter 1033. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Siowa versus Jiang Zizai. Sorry to disturb you. Martial Emperor Shao. I don't mean to offend you. I just want to take Song Ziyang away. Once I restore his cultivation, I will return Song Ziyang's freedom and have him apologize on behalf of this old man. As for his marriage with Ling Xiaoxue, I won't interfere. When the atmosphere was tense, Martial Emperor Xinghun's old voice came from afar, alleviating the tension. Shao Yi's brows relaxed as he released his grip on the armrest of the throne. Duan Zhanfei's surging primordial qi also returned to his body. Martial Emperor Xinghun was a martial emperor of the older generation. His cultivation was amazing. Even if Shao Yi and Duan Zhanfei joined forces, they were not confident of defeating him, not to mention snatching Song Ziyang back from him. He had already given Shao Yi enough face by speaking humbly. Shao Shui, go back and rest. Song Ziyang will be fine. Just wait for him to come back after I've cured your weakness. Looking at Ling Xiaoxue, who was crying and calling Song Ziyang's name, Qin Hao waved his hand in the direction of the Imperial Tower. Jiang Fan, Mu Feiyu, and Yang Kun understood and took Ling Xiaoxue away. The old ancestor of the Song family had made it clear that he would not do anything to Song Ziyang. He was just angry that Song Ziyang had left the family without permission. Once Song Ziyang's destroyed martial vein was repaired, Martial Emperor Xinghun would release him. From his attitude, it could be seen that Martial Emperor Xinghun was reluctant to let go of Song Ziyang, a talented descendant. Qin Hao, right? The #1 genius of Western Liang? Very good, you're not bad. But the old man has a good advice. I hope you'll keep in your heart. Meddlesome people don't live long. The princess loves you so deeply and sees you as her life. She sees all the other elites as dung. You must not disappoint the princess' passionate love. My son Zijia has been defeated, and I have no interest in watching the competition. Now, I will let the heavens bear witness for me. Let's see if you, Qin Hao, can reach the end of the competition. Let's go. Song Hongxiao glared fiercely at Qin Hao. His eyes were cold and threatening. He flicked his sleeve and ordered his men to carry Song Zijia, who was covered in wounds, away. Then, he turned into streams of light and flew towards the direction of northern Yen. The entire clan disappeared from the palace. Even if he had to leave, he had to add fuel to the fire and sow discord between Qin Hao and the other contestants, pushing Qin Hao to the forefront of the storm. Just like how the others didn't know that Shao Han liked Qin Hao, Song Hongxiao had to remind them, especially Zhou Wudao, kill Million Knives and Xianyuan Wuji. Only in this way could Zhou Wudao be enraged and deepen his determination to get rid of Qin Hao. Only in this way could Song Hongxiao's hatred be quenched. Song Hongxiao finally understood that if Qin Hao hadn't acted as the middleman between Ling Xiaoxue and Song Zhang, the Lingyun school wouldn't have survived at all, not to mention the scene of Song Zhang defeating Song Zijia. This Qin Hao of Western Liang really made Song Hongxiao's gums ache. Before he left, he had to discuss Qin Hao. He had to admit that the Song family's patriarch had a very bad conscience. Of course he won't live for long. because soon I will send Qin Hao to the afterlife. Moreover, Ling Xiaoxue, you don't have to wait for Song Ziang anymore. You won't be able to wait for him for the rest of your life. As long as Qin Hao dies, no one can save you. You and Song Ziang will never be together. Ha ha ha. As soon as Song Hongxiao left, arrogant laughter sounded from below the imperial tower. The laughter was so loud that it spread throughout the entire Imperial Martial Plaza. Lu Chou raised his right leg and confidently stepped onto the steps of the arena, indicating that his duel with Qin Hao was about to begin. But before Lu Chou's left leg could take a step forward, a tyrannical shoulder slammed into him from the side, heavily knocking him back 2 steps and forcing his laughter back into his throat. Get out of the way. It's not your turn to kill Qin Hao. After I kill Xiaogua, the next opponent will be Qin Hao. Jiang Zizai pushed Lu Chou aside and hurriedly rushed onto the arena. After he got onto the arena, he turned around and gave Lu Chou a provocative look. His lips opened and closed as if he was scolding, "Brat." This caused Lu Chou's face to darken. He felt both angry and embarrassed. Previously, when he challenged Qin Hao, he was forced to retreat by Song Ziang. Now he was being bullied and humiliated by Jiang Zizai. Did he really think he was a pushover? Hee. Lu Chou coldly laughed as he glanced at Pavilion Master Jiang and the powerful lineup of the Medicine Emperor Pavilion before retreating. He cursed in his heart. If Jiang Zizai didn't have an Emperor-level father protecting him, the first person he would kill would be this Jiang Zizai. Zizai, go to hell and find the King of Hell. Hey, Xiaogua over there, get up here. Seeing that Lu Chou didn't dare to resist, Jiang Zizai's arrogance increased. He arrogantly pointed at Xiaogua's face. Go! Qin Hao patted Xiaogua's shoulder. He didn't encourage him, but he didn't remind him either. Qin Hao believed in the ability of his brother. Your Master Melon is here. Xiaogua bent his leg and turned into a black shadow that rushed onto the arena. He bared his teeth and smiled at Jiang Zizai, assuming a battle stance. Western Liang Silk Country's Prince Xiaogua versus Northern Border's Medicine Emperor Pavilion's chief disciple, Jiang Zizai. Gong Sun Changxing shouted. In the next moment, the arena was filled with loud cheers. The Western Liang martial artists and the Raging Bear army, hidden in the crowd, cheered for Xiaogua. Chapter 1034. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation Purple Pill Divine Fist. Recently, I heard that you and Qin Hao are sworn brothers, right? He killed my younger brother, so I'll torture you to death. Consider it as collecting some interest first. Jiang Zizai's ferocious eyes flashed, and his ruthless words were resolute and decisive. Idiot! Xiaogua sneered, suspecting that there was something wrong with Jiang Zizai's IQ. In terms of background, Jiang Zizai was indeed very strong. His father was a primitive emperor powerhouse of northern Qi and the best royal-grade alchemist in the entire northern border. His sect was very powerful. However, the Medicine Emperor Pavilion could scare ordinary martialists, but this was their territory. Given the relationship between Xiaogua and Xiao Han, it was impossible for Jiang Zizai to kill Xiaogua in Daliao's capital. Xiao Han was the first to disagree. When you were born, you must have accidentally fallen from the midwife's hands and hit your head on the urinal. You must have accidentally choked on 2 mouthfuls of urine and burned your nerves. Xiaogua curled his lips in mockery. As soon as he said that, everyone in the Medicine Emperor Pavilion sect was infuriated. Jiang Zizai was fuming with anger. You sharp-tongued little bastard. Let's see if you can still remain calm when I break your legs. Take my fist first. Jiang Zizai roared. His whole body was covered in purple light. Along with his Yuan Qi, he raised his fist and hammered toward Qi Xiaogua's face. Xiaogua responded with a punch as well. The two of them were extremely fast, closing the distance between them and colliding in the blink of an eye. Bang! As the two fists collided, their respective Yuan Qis wreaked havoc and mixed together. A layer of air burst out from the center. Jiang Zizai was unmoved by this punch, but Xiaogua couldn't stop himself and stumbled back. After all, Sayoba was much weaker than Jiang Zizai in terms of cultivation. Jiang Zizai and Song Zijia were both peak 4th rank Yuan venerates. Sayoba's cultivation base was even lower than Yi Shuihan's. He was only a mid-tier, 2nd-level Yuan venerate. Without the support of his origin soul, he was at a disadvantage. You can't even withstand a single blow. I only used 30% of my strength for this punch. Next, I'll use 50%. Jiang Zizai was disdainful. He quickly chased after the retreating Sayoba and punched him again. Herculean bull demon body, open for me. Sayoba did not hesitate to summon his source spirit. A white fog appeared behind him, and the sound of a cow's roar came from the white fog. One could vaguely see a giant creature moving in the fog. Demon Ox Stomp. Sayoba summoned his source spirit, and his right foot suddenly stomped the ground. Bang! He forcefully stabilized his body, and once again raised his fist to meet the attack. When he raised his second fist, the giant shadow and the white fog behind him turned into a beam of light and entered his body. Sayoba's body started to undergo earth-shattering changes. He quickly grew to a height of more than 4 meters. His 4 limbs became incomparably thick and solid, and a sharp horn stood erect on top of his head, flickering with a cold light. Dense black hair appeared out of nowhere on his sturdy chest, making him look like a savage, emitting a wild aura. At that moment, Jiang Zizai, who was rushing over, seemed extremely petite compared to Sayoba's 4-meter-tall, sturdy body. Although he was shocked, Jiang Zizai did not panic. He channeled 50% of his strength into his arm and met Sayoba's giant fist head-on. Bang! The sound of this heavy blow was 10 times more powerful than the previous one. At the same time, Jiang Zizai cried out in pain. After meeting Sayoba's second fist, Jiang Zizai cupped his fist and jumped up in pain. Tears welled up in his eyes. He had never expected that Sayoba's fist, which was as hard as 10,000-year-old cold steel, would almost shatter the bones in his hand after activating the Source Soul Roar. However, Sayoba's situation was even worse than Jiang Zizai's. His 2 legs could not stand steadily, and he was still forced back more than 10 meters by his opponent's 50% strength. Every step he took left a footprint on the table. By the time he stabilized his body, his 2 boots had exploded and blood was flowing from the corner of his mouth. You are indeed worthy of being a disciple of a prestigious family. You are indeed much stronger than the so-called first-rate geniuses. Sayoba couldn't help but praise Jiang Zizai as he wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth with the back of his hand. This punch had used 70% of his bull soul's power. Under normal circumstances, it would have been more than enough to severely injure a 5th-level Yuan venerate, let alone kill one. However, even Jiang Zizai, who was a 4th-level Yuan venerate, had not been able to withstand 50% of his strength. The children of the top aristocratic families in the northern frontier were indeed very capable. Opening your source spirit. Could it be that your strength is only this weak? Ha ha ha. Western Liang, you really disappoint me. Go to hell. Purple Pill Divine Fist. Suddenly, Jiang Zizai bellowed as dense purple Yuan energy gathered frantically in his right fist. The Yuan energy was several times thicker than before, making his entire arm look as if it had turned purple. Jiang Zizai's fist exploded with a purple sphere the size of a wash basin. It was actually an elixir pill engraved with patterns. This was the first time Sayoba had seen his mystical fist technique. He believed that it would also be the first time Qin Hao had seen it. The elixir pill spun out at a speed so fast that it was impossible to catch sight of it. It left behind a purple afterimage as it arrived in front of Sayoba in a flash. The purple pill divine fist that I condensed this time has increased my Yuan energy to 80%. Death is the only outcome for you. Jiang Zizai spoke confidently after unleashing this punch, as if he could already see Sayoba's corpse. Demonic Ox Roaring Skywave. Chapter 1035. Give me strength. He clenched his fists, leaned back slightly, and took a deep breath. visible to the naked eye. An even more violent origin energy gathered from Tsaogwa's feet to his head. Then his neck stretched forward, and a winding storm erupted from his mouth, like a ferocious python rushing past, smashing the purple pill into pieces and directly smashing it in front of Jiang Zizai. Break for me! Jiang Zizai's 5 fingers closed together, and he once again increased his origin energy. He threw out a heavy punch, gritting his teeth to forcefully disperse the green storm. At this moment, his right fist felt a sharp pain, and his body suddenly leaned back, and he couldn't help but slide back 2 steps. Suddenly, a look of surprise appeared on his face, and Jiang Zizai said, "Not bad." Tsaogwa used 100% of his soul power to break his 80% origin energy. Although Jiang Zizai immediately counterattacked with 90% of his strength, breaking Tsaogwa's origin spirit unique skill. It was enough to see that if he didn't use his special skills, even if Jiang Zizai used his full strength, he could only fight to a draw with Tsaogwa in his origin spirit state. You are qualified to see my origin spirit. This is your fortune, and also your misfortune. Jiang Zizai's face tightened, and for the first time, he spoke seriously. After he finished speaking, he didn't summon his origin spirit, and there was no white mist behind him. Jiang Zizai roared, "Give me strength!" Suddenly, a light flashed in his hand, and a white pill appeared out of thin air, the size of a steamed bun. Jiang Zizai grabbed the pill and began to crazily chew on it. After he finished eating, his face revealed an unsatisfied expression. As he licked his tongue, the muscles of his arms, thighs, chest, and even the muscles of his entire body began to crazily expand. Although in terms of height, he was not as burly as Tsaogwa, but the muscles all over his body were enough to be called majestic. What was more obvious was that Jiang Zizai's aura was 3 times stronger than his original appearance. What the hell is this? Tsaogwa was shocked. Give me speed. Jiang Zizai didn't explain at all, and a light flashed in his palm. Suddenly, another white pill appeared, the size of a steamed bun. However, there was a red mark on the second pill. After he swallowed the pill, he slightly increased his strength, and his body exploded like a rocket. With a bang, he suddenly appeared in front of Tsaogwa and used his bulging muscles to punch Tsaogwa on the left side of his face. The entire process was so fast that Tsaogwa could not react in time. In terms of speed, he was 3 times faster than his original appearance. Pung! This punch was quite powerful. The hammering caused Melon Lord's eyes to roll back, and he spat out a broken tooth. His body, which was over 4 meters tall, was sent flying diagonally. Tsaogwa felt as if his brain was in a mess. After he reacted, he immediately launched a counterattack. To be honest, no one had ever knocked his teeth out of his mouth before. Today was quite a humiliation. Melon Lord's large hand directly pressed down on the top of Jiang Zizai's head. "Give me agility." Jiang Zizai roared again. With a flash of light, a third pill appeared in his palm. It was also the size of a steam bun. There were 2 red marks on the third pill. He raised his hand and threw it into his mouth. Just as Tsaogwa's large hand was about to press down, Jiang Zizai, who had just eaten the third pill, twisted his body in a way that defied common sense. He was parallel to the ground and dodged Tsaogwa's palm. He was as nimble as a loach. Immediately after, another heavy punch landed on Tsaogwa's stomach. The strength of the punch was so strong that Melon Lord was sent flying into the sky while screaming, and a pile of blood sprinkled down. Jiang Zizai, whose speed, strength, and agility had all increased by 3 times, laughed loudly and rushed towards Tsaogwa with surging vitality. Instantly, a series of banging sounds came from the sky. In just a few breaths, Tsaogwa was beaten beyond recognition. Even if he activated the Herculean bull demon body, he still did not have the slightest strength to resist and was completely crushed by Jiang Zizai. "Ha ha! My son Zizai has a pill origin spirit and can condense chi into pills out of thin air. Every time he eats a pill, he can strengthen one of his attributes by 3 times. Currently, he can condense speed pills, agility pills, and strength pills. As his realm continues to deepen and he breaks through to the Emperor level, he might be able to condense a defensive pill. Watching the battle, Pavilion Master Zhang's face was filled with arrogance as he explained to everyone. Everyone's expression changed at the same time, their hearts filled with incomparable shock. There was no need for herbs, cauldrons, or refining. He could condense qi into pills out of thin air. Each pill could increase the strength of one of his attributes by 3 times. It could be said to be heaven-defying. If it was as Pavilion Master Zhang said, once Jiang Zizai stepped into the Emperor level, he would awaken a 4th defensive pill. At that time, his attributes would all increase by 3 times. In the same realm, who could be Jiang Zizai's opponent? This person could be said to be invincible. Speaking of my eldest son, it inevitably makes old man think of my youngest son. Fengyu has a medicinal cauldron origin spirit. Although his instantaneous explosive power is not as strong as his older brothers. But looking at it from a long-term perspective, in terms of potential, my youngest son is better than my eldest son. After Pavilion Master Jiang finished showing off Jiang Zizai, he began to show off his youngest son. It was a pity that his youngest son, Jiang Fengyu, who had endless potential, had been mercilessly killed by Qin Hao. He could not help but feel a heart-wrenching pain. Pavilion Master Jiang clenched his fists in hatred. Chapter 1036. Kneeling again, however, Xiaogu was currently in a dangerous situation, being beaten to a miserable state by Jiang Zizai. If he didn't have the bull demon body, his skin was thick and his defense was strong. If it was a normal martial artist, even if it was a genius with a source spirit like Yu Wuhan, they would have already died under Jiang Zizai's crazy attacks. Xiaoguo, Yi Shuihan anxiously stood up. His eyes stared at the sky as sweat dripped down his face. He looked at Drunkard beside him. If it wasn't for Drunkard not telling Xiaoguo to admit defeat, Yi Shuihan really wanted to make a decision for Xiaoguo and give up on this match. But Drunkard, who seemed calm on the surface, was actually trembling with nervousness. The wine in his wine gourd spilled onto the ground, but he didn't notice it at all. Cousin, let Xiaoguo give up. Jiang Zizai's fierce attacks. If it was me, I wouldn't be able to last 5 breaths. Qin Yin couldn't help saying. The heavy sounds coming from the sky made him tremble with fear. Xiaoguo had lasted for a full quarter of an hour. Qin Hao shook his head. Wait a bit. His mind locked onto the sky. Qin Hao's mind was highly concentrated, not letting go of a single second. He was afraid that something would happen at Xiaoguo. He noticed that although the situation was bad, Xiaoguo's fighting spirit had not decreased. This meant that Xiaoguo still had strength to spare. Even Shui Han had awakened the profound power of her source spirit. Qin Hao didn't believe that in a year, Xiaoguo's cultivation had only increased. There had to be a qualitative change. Taking a step back, even if Xiaoguo's source spirit was still the same, he still had Zhou Wudao's middle-grade supreme weapon in his hand, the Blue Wand Demon Subduing Pestle. The Blue Wand Demon Subduing Pestle was not a joke. After all, the strength of the inscription was something that even Qin Hao recognized. With this pair of demon subduing pestles, even if Xiaoguo was defeated, his life would not be in danger. Yeah. Seeing that Qin Hao was so calm, Qin Yin sighed worriedly and had no choice but to look up again. Honor, should we stop this battle? In the Imperial Tower, He looked at Xiao Han, who was sitting on the phoenix seat beside him. Because of Qin Hao, Yi knew that when Xiao Han was in Xiuyang, he had always treated Xiaoguo, who could transform, as his younger brother. Xiaoguo was not bad, but unfortunately, he met a stronger opponent. In order to prevent any accidents, Yi felt that it was necessary to remind his daughter. Otherwise, if Xiaoguo was too badly injured and was too late to stop him, and if he died in Jiang Zizai's hands, it would cause a big mess. No need. Just like Qin Hao, Xiao Han's answer was straightforward. Although she was also a little nervous, Xiao Han believed that Xiaoguo would definitely be able to turn the tables, because he was Qin Hao's brother. Xiao Yi's eyebrows twitched. and he stopped trying to persuade her. He turned his head and gave Duan Zhanfei a look, indicating that he should save Jiang Zizai at any time. Duan Zhanfei nodded, and two sharp lights shot up into the sky from his magical beast mask. His consciousness firmly locked on its Sayogwa and Jiang Zizai's auras. Bang! At this moment, Sayogwa turned into a black shadow and fell down, shaking the 1,000-meter-wide Colosseum 3 times. I didn't expect your skin to be so thick. You're still alive after taking 1,000 punches from me. Jiang Zizai gasped for breath, his face covered in sweat as his body slowly floated down. He had not killed Sayogwa, but he was exhausted. However, even if you're not dead, you're not far from being dead. Jiang Zizai glanced at Sayogwa, who was lying motionless on the stage like a pile of mud, and spoke again. He believed that as long as he casually added another blow, Sayogwa would definitely die. Little Melon, young master, Yishu Han, Chun Wanqin, Qin Yun, Xing'er, Little Nine, and the Furious Bear army soldiers hidden among the civilians all took a few steps toward the Colosseum, their faces full of nervousness. Ugh, it hurts. My teeth, my arms, and my face. It hurts. A weak voice came from Sayogwa's position. His fingers moved. Then he pressed his palm against the stage and arched his back. Like a desperate lobster, he trembled and struggled to get up. His face was full of blood, blurring his vision. His facial features were severely deformed, and his mouth was crooked. His nose was bruised, and his face was swollen. However, Sayogwa's eyes were still full of fighting spirit. Jiang Zizai was stunned for a moment. You can still get up. Your endurance is longer than I thought. Ha! Sayogwa sneered and wiped the blood on his face with his hand. He turned around and looked at Qin Hao below the stage. Qin Hao seemed to have sensed something and nodded at Sayogwa with a smile. At this moment, Sayogwa's heart surged. He felt that his lost strength had returned. He clenched his fists tighter and tighter. He glared at Jiang Zizai and said in a deep voice, "Once for me." Big Brother didn't hesitate to stab himself with a blade and kneel to others. I swore that the same scene would never happen again. Do you know that? I swore. Oh, Jiang Zizai was stunned again. There's actually such a wonderful thing. Why did I think of it? He felt that he should follow suit and restrain Sayogwa. Then he could threaten Qin Hao and force him to kneel and kowtow. That scene must be very interesting. Jiang Zizai couldn't wait. He rubbed his big hands and smiled. Thank you for your reminder. I wanted to kill you with the next move, but now I've changed my mind. Come. Obediently lie under the soles of Grandpa's feet. Let me use you to anger Qin Hao first. Otherwise, there will be 1,000 times, 10,000 times more painful torture on your body. And you can't resist. Chapter 1037. Translator, Transin Editor, Transin A Narrow Victory. You want me to taste 1,000 times more painful torture and force my big brother to kneel down again? Sayogwa was enraged. Jiang Zizai had undoubtedly provoked his reverse scale. However, he immediately loosened his clenched fists and looked down at Jiang Zizai's feet with a sly smile on his face. Have you given up struggling? Seems like you are not stupid. Since struggling is useless, why don't you hurry up and kneel down under my feet and cooperate with me to humiliate Qin Hao? Seeing that Sayogwa had let down his guard, Jiang Zizai spoke arrogantly. Instantly, the smile on Sayogwa's face became even wider. You want me to kneel down under your feet? No problem. However, I want to ask you something. Just now, the 3 pills you made increase speed, strength, and agility respectively. In other words, your defensive power is still the same as before. Then, may I ask if you have a 4th pill that can increase your defensive power? Thump! Jiang Zizai's heart skipped a beat. He suddenly had a bad premonition. Why did the other party ask this? What do you mean? What I mean is, the 6th transformation of the Ox Soul, Ox Armor Battle. Jiang Zizai's expression had already answered him. He did not have a 4th soul pill that could increase his defensive power. Sayogwa made a prompt decision and roared out a surging sound wave. His weakened aura suddenly surged, and a glaring light appeared on the surface of his body. The light turned into a dark green armor that covered his body. The appearance of the armor was very ugly. There were only 4 pieces of iron protecting the chest, back, left shoulder blade, and right shoulder blade. Not only was it ugly, but it was also extremely crude. After Tsayowa wore it, he looked even more barbaric. Do not underestimate these 4 simple iron pieces. Each of them was covered with hook-shaped barbs. Each bar was about a finger long. They were densely packed and innumerable. This was the 6th transformation of the Ox Soul that Tsayowa had awakened. Ox Armor Battle. Once summoned and equipped with this set of Ox Armor, it could absorb a large amount of damage for the master and also had the effect of reflecting damage to the opponent. Chi Rush. Without giving Jiang Zizai a chance to react, Tsayowa punched the ground beneath his feet, creating a thick layer of white mist. The white mist was mixed with the smell of oxen, and it quickly spread along the arena to Jiang Zizai's feet. Pung! Jiang Zizai felt as if he had been hit by a fountain. He wailed like a ghost and howled like a wolf. His internal organs were shaken out of place, and he couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Just as Tsayowa had guessed, his opponent's defense was still the same as before. Back then, Tsayowa had been able to injure Jiang Zizai when he had used 10% of his soul power, not to mention now that his soul had risen another level, reaching the 6th transformation. Jiang Zizai was seriously injured by this attack. Heavenly Ox Wheel. Tsayowa took advantage of his victory to pursue and attack. He squatted down and hugged his thighs tightly with his hands. His head was in the middle of his pants, curling up into a ball. With a hum, the ball bounced towards Jiang Zizai. As soon as they made contact, a piece of bloody flesh was cut off from Jiang Zizai's body by Tsayowa's spiked armor. If one looked at it in shock, they would find that this piece of bloody skin had been torn off from the left side of Jiang Zizai's face. It was no doubt disfiguring him. Jiang Zizai covered his face with his hands and kicked around, letting out a mournful scream in the air. But his reaction was fast enough. After being injured, he dodged Tsayowa's Heavenly Ox Wheel. Tsayowa's Heavenly Ox Wheel flew into the sky with a hum. Of course, Jiang Zizai wouldn't let it go. He chased after Tsayowa's, and sent out a barrage of punches. He was filled with anger as he sent out wave after wave of energy. His attacks were even fiercer than when he had ravaged Tsayowa. However, Tsayowa was wearing the reflective armor. The 4 iron plates looked simple, but were as hard as steel and protected him very well. Half of the essence energy that Jiang Zizai blasted out bounced back and dissipated after colliding with his own essence energy. A small portion of it was absorbed by Jiang Zizai himself. The faster he attacked, the more injuries he suffered. Even so, the blood in Qi Xiaogua's mouth continued to spurt out in droves. Because Jiang Zizai's attack first hit his body before it was bounced back. The 2 of them fought back and forth in the air, competing to see who would be the first to give up. From afar, the scene looked like Jiang Zizai was fighting with a hedgehog. It was comical and extremely dangerous. Heaven's equal staff. Finally, Jiang Zizai was the first to give up. He realized that if they continued to fight, Tsayowa might not be killed by him, but Jiang Zizai might be killed by the energy that bounced back. Without any hesitation, he took out his trump card, which was a powerful golden rod. The staff shone with a metallic luster. It was unknown what material it was made of. Jiang Zizai held it in his hand and swung it at Tsayowa's back. Bang! The staff smashed half of Tsayowa's armor, and his spine seemed to have been broken. He could not help but scream in pain. "I'll kill you!" Jiang Zizai's eyes were bloodshot. Half of his face was badly mutilated. He jumped up in anger and aimed at Tsayowa again. The heavens' equal staff struck down. The golden light was vast and mighty. It was as if it could cut through mountains and open rivers. It was earth-shattering. Qingwan Demon Subduing Staff. After being hit by the staff, Tsayowa knew that he would definitely not be able to withstand the second strike. He immediately took out Zhou Wudao's Qingwan staff. Holding the mighty staff in his hand, Tsayowa's aura was great. He raised one hand and blocked Jiang Zizai's staff. Clang! A heavy sound exploded in the air. Chapter 1038. Translator, Nioibo Studio Editor. Nioibo, studio unimaginable might crack. The sound of flesh exploding was heard. Pieces of flesh flew everywhere and blood sprayed onto Tsayowa's head. This pestle had smashed half of Jiang Zizai's body into mush. From his left arm to his left shoulder, and then to his left chest, half a hole was formed. Even the heaven's equal staff above his head had been bent by the pestle. Suddenly, Jiang Zizai's hand loosened and the deformed heaven's equal staff fell from the sky like a piece of rotten meat. This scene stunned Tsayowa. He stared blankly at Jiang Zizai, who had lost half his body for a long time. The might of the demon's subduing pestle seemed to have seriously exceeded his imagination. It was too terrifying. However, no matter what, it seemed like Tsayowa had won this match. It had been a narrow victory. "Oh, my son!" Pavilion Master Jiang, who had been bragging about his son, burst into tears as he turned into a cone-shaped force and pounced on the falling Jiang Zizai. Before Jiang Zizai could land on the arena, he was already in Pavilion Master Jiang's arms. Pavilion Master Jiang's heart ached as he looked at his son, who was in such a miserable state. He used his Monarch Yuan Qi to protect Jiang Zizai's heart meridians and forcefully kept him alive. Then, he flipped his palm over and stuffed a golden pill into Jiang Zizai's mouth. Although Jiang Zizai didn't get better, his life was saved. "Men, kill him!" Pavilion Master Jiang pointed angrily at Tsayowa, who was holding the large pestle in his hand. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In an instant, 7 or 8 yuan venerate powerhouses with purple auras flew towards Tsayowa from the Imperial Tower. Before they even arrived, powerful yuan qi blasted over. The ones who attacked were the elders of the Medicine Emperor Pavilion. Every elder's cultivation base was higher than Tsayowa's. If they hit him, he would definitely be dismembered on the spot. However, their wish didn't come true. A stalwart figure appeared in front of Qi Xiaohua and casually swept out a white gold flame aura, causing 7 to 8 Medicine Emperor Pavilion's elders to fall to the ground. None of them were able to move an inch. How dare you disregard the rules in front of Emperor Shao? You are courting death. Duan Zhanfei, who was protecting Tsayowa, looked down and released his emperor-level pressure. "Thank you, senior." Tsayowa hurriedly expressed his gratitude. He was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. At this moment, he was also exhausted to the extreme. He dispersed the ox soul and returned to his original state. Duan Zhanfei nodded. He grabbed Tsayowa's shoulder and floated down the stage. He stared coldly at Pavilion Master Jiang. "He crippled my son and almost took my son's life." Pavilion Master Jiang clenched his teeth. "This is a competition," Duan Zhanfei said coldly. "Shao, he." Pavilion Master Jiang turned his head and looked at Martial Emperor Daliao in the Imperial Tower. His intention was clear. He wanted Shao Yi to give him an explanation. "What? Martial Emperor Star Soul has just left, and you want to test my patience?" Shao Yi replied expressionlessly. He did not give Pavilion Master Jiang any face. He would not kill Tsayowa for him. "You?" Pavilion Master Jiang's chest tightened. He was so angry that he almost vomited blood. "Pavilion Master, the young master's life is at stake. Only the Patriarch can save him." At this moment, an elder who was pressed to the ground by Duan Zhanfei reminded him carefully. "Good, very good, very good. In order to participate in your daughter's son-in-law selection competition, I brought my 2 sons here with great sincerity. I have 2 sons. Even if I sold one of them to the Shao clan and took Shao Yi's surname, so what? As long as you and I are allies, who in the northern borderline can touch us? However, you, Shao Yi, did not know how to appreciate my kindness. One of my sons is dead and the other is crippled. I will report this matter to the Sacred Emperor. Just you wait, Shao Yi." Pavilion Master Jiang rolled up his sleeves and flew towards northern Qi with Jiang Zizai's crippled body. He was furious. When the other elders of the Medicine Emperor Pavilion saw this, they hurriedly left. Before they left, they did not forget to pick up the deformed heaven's equal staff. "How is it, Brother Gua? Are you all right?" Qin Hao stepped onto the stage and asked with concern. Sayogwa shook his head. He was exhausted to the extreme. "It's nothing serious. However, Jiang's eyes beating is very painful. Big brother, I'm afraid that I will stop here. I won't be able to help you." Sayogwa secretly glanced at the top of the tower. Besides Zhou Wudao, Xinyuan Wuji, Sha Wandao, and Murong Zijun were fiercer than Jiang's eye. Each of them was more powerful than Jiang's eye. However, Sayogwa had already used all his strength to defeat Jiang's eye. In the end, he had relied on Zhou Wudao's demon, subduing Pestle, to barely win. Sayogwa was clear that he did not have the qualifications to continue fighting. He felt ashamed to face his big brother and let Qin Hao face him alone. "You're already very good. In this year, you and Shuehan have improved a lot. Don't worry, I can deal with the rest. However, you can't give up yet." Qin Hao patted Sayogwa's shoulder. "I understand." Sayogwa grinned. Before he could reach the first place of the Emperor Martial ranking, he still needed to help Qin Hao hold off one of the contestants. "And go down and treat your injuries. Many thanks for Senior Battle King's protection." After letting Sayogwa get off the stage, Qin Hao bowed to Duan Zhanfei. "I'm just following the rules. Moreover, I won't let the people of the Medicine Emperor Pavilion mess around. After all, you saved Ziju's life. Kid, it's up to you. I'll say the same thing. Don't let my son sacrifice for you in vain. Don't let your good brothers bleed for you in vain. Good luck." Duan Zhanfei encouraged. His figure flashed, and he returned to the top of the tower. Chapter 1039. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations Lu. Chao's identity. Sayogwa, the prince of the western Liang Silk Country, wins. Gongsun Chongqing announced the result. The competition continued. The next match was Qin Hao versus the champion of the children's group, Lu Chou. The first few matches were all interesting to watch. Xinyuan Wuji's domineering attack that defeated Duan Ziju, Yi Shuehan, and Zheng Qingqi's grand and stunning battle. Song Xiang and Song Zijie's sibling rivalry. Until Sayogwa narrowly defeated Jiang Zizai with a demon subduing Pestle. The audience watched with great interest. They were looking forward to the battle between Qin Hao and Lu Chou. This anticipation was higher than that of the other contestants. After all, everyone knew that Princess Jingwei liked Qin Hao. Interesting. Zhou Wudao smiled. Qin Hao actually gave the demon subduing Pestle that he won from the bet to Sayogwa as a weapon to turn the tables. This was beyond his expectations. He thought that Qin Hao would take the demon subduing Pestle for his own use. "Without the demon subduing Pestle, I want to see what ability you have to defeat that mysterious child." Zhou Wudao's sharp eyes stared at Lu Chou. With his eyesight, he had long seen that Lu Chou was not ordinary and was quite strange. In addition, the demon subduing Pestle in Sayogwa's hands seemed to be more powerful than Zhou Wudao's. He couldn't figure it out and was too lazy to think about it, because even if Sayogwa had the demon subduing Pestle, he was nothing to worry about. Now, Zhou Wudao only wanted to see how capable Qin Hao was and why Princess Jingwei liked him. "Finally, it's my turn to take your dog life. I've waited for this moment for too long." Lu Chou went up the stage and clenched his fist at Qin Hao. He didn't hide the hatred in his eyes. "Yes, it's our turn. Now, can you tell me what kind of deep hatred there is between us that made you attack Su'er to take revenge on me?" Qin Hao asked. "Hee, do you really want to know? But I won't tell you. You can ask the King of Hell the answer to this riddle." Lu Chou roared, gathering vital qi in his palm, shaking out a surging purple light as he struck out with his palm. Qin Hao also countered with a palm strike. His sixth-tier king realm cultivation erupted without holding back, and he attacked with his full strength. When Qin Hao was testing Lu Chou's strength earlier, he discovered that Lu Chou's strength was not weaker than his own. If he still held back, it would undoubtedly be a foolish action. Pung! The two palms collided, shaking heaven and earth. Lu Chao's chest tightened as he took 3 steps back, forcefully suppressing his surging qi and blood back into the mansion. Qin Hao, on the other hand, slid back more than 20 meters, a trace of blood seeping out of the corner of his mouth. It was enough to prove that Lu Chou had the upper hand. 5th level Yuan Venerate. Qin Hao exclaimed in surprise. He wiped the corner of his mouth with the back of his hand. You are also monstrous enough to fight me to a draw with a 6th tier Yuan Monarch cultivation. Lu Chou gritted his teeth, his eyes filled with envy, jealousy, and deep hatred. A second later, his expression relaxed slightly. The palm strike just now had proved that he had completely suppressed Qin Hao after using his full strength. This time, he could take revenge without even needing to use his trump card. How is it possible that he has become a 5th tier Yuan Venerate at such a young age? Little Jiao, who was watching from the spectator stand, was particularly shocked. He is not just a 5th tier Yuan Venerate, but a peak 5th tier Yuan Venerate who is only half a step away from the 6th tier. No wonder this person played the other contestants in the juvenile group like a fiddle. Boss has encountered a difficult problem, Yishui Han said nervously. We can only pray that Lu Chou is not an Essence Soul Realm Martialist. If he is, Qin Hao's situation will be unimaginable. Chen Wanqin clenched her fists tightly. One's cultivation base, cultivation technique, divine soldier's weapon, special bloodline. Every aspect could affect the success or failure of a battle. Martialists of the same grade would have stronger abilities if they cultivated a higher level cultivation technique. This was a well-known fact. Generally speaking, an Essence Soul Realm Martialist could easily crush an ordinary Martialist. They could even challenge someone 3 levels above them without a problem. Qin Hao's strength and ability were monstrous. He had already surpassed the limits of a 3rd tier Martial Path challenge. However, there was also a limit to surpassing the limits. When an ordinary Martialist cultivation base was much higher than an Essence Soul Realm Martialist's, all cultivation techniques, Divine Soldier's weapon, and even the Origin Soul would not be able to withstand a single blow. Lu Chou was a 5th tier Yuan Venerate, while Qin Hao was only a 6th tier Yuan Monarch. The difference between the two of them was an entire heavenly cycle. The gap between their cultivation bases was just too great. Even if Lu Chou wasn't an Essence Soul Realm Martialist, it wouldn't be easy for Qin Hao to defeat him. At the moment, Dan Xian, the old demon, Yao Lao, and Yi Long Yuan, who were watching the battle, didn't dare say that Qin Hao would win for sure. Everyone had a worried look on their faces. On the other hand, Xiao Yi, who was in the Imperial Tower, was looking forward to the outcome. He really wanted to know how Qin Hao would defeat a heavenly cycle martialist that surpassed him by almost 1 heavenly cycle. Would he rely on the Crouching Dragon and Young Phoenix to forge the 5-element sword? The power of the 5-element sword could indeed kill Lu Chou with a very high success rate. However, if that was the case, Xiao Yi would definitely be disappointed in Qin Hao. Lu Chou wasn't worthy of staining the 5-element sword with blood. A 16-year-old peak 5th tier Yuan Venerate. Haha, you really know how to hide. If what I saw was the truth, then even I, Qin Hao, would have to admit that you, Lu Chou, could be considered the #1 evildoer in the past 5,000 years of the martial path. But it's a pity you're not. Chapter 1040. Sword-shaking Emperor Martial Wat Chen Wanqin was worried about just now was exactly what he was worried about. Lu Chou's cultivation was so high, and if he was an Essence Soul Realm martial artist, there was almost no need to fight this match. Qin Hao had to test him. After this palm, it would be clear whether Lu Chou was an Essence Soul Realm martial artist or not. Humph! Just now, Lu Chou repelled Qin Hao with 1 move. At this time, Lu Chou was not afraid at all and once again met the attack with his palm. Pung! The vibration sounded again, mixed with flames raging on the arena. But this time, Qin Hao only took 3 steps back. On the other hand, Lu Chou instantly fell into a panic. He thought that Qin Hao's second palm attack was a set of flame cultivation techniques. After all, the color was different from the first time, but he miscalculated. As soon as he touched it, Lu Chou realized that it was an essence, soul, strange fire, and his arm was immediately covered by the strange fire. With a loud shout, Lu Chou's fifth order venerable qi burst out. With a flick of his arm, the red lotus fire that wrapped around him was forcefully dispersed. At the same time, he also threw out his burned sleeve, revealing a dark red arm. Faintly, there was a smell of half-cooked meat on his arm. What a strong, strange fire, Lu Chou said in shock. You don't have an essence soul. Qin Hao's eyes were filled with joy. The power of the essence soul was bestowed by the heavenly Tao. If he wanted to dissolve it, the best way was to use the soul power bestowed by the heavenly Tao to fight back. When Lu Chou was in danger, he did not use his essence soul in time. Instead, he exploded with all his strength to disperse the red lotus fire, proving that he was not an essence soul realm martial artist. Qin Hao immediately let out a sigh of relief. Yi Shuihan and the others who were watching the battle also exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. The worry on everyone's face lessened a little. So what? I'm not an essence soul realm martial artist. Killing you is as easy as stepping on a grasshopper. Lu Chou relied on his high cultivation level and was extremely contemptuous of Qin Hao. Why don't you try again? Red Lotus Exploding Flame Blade. With a flip of his palm, the great void sword appeared in his hand. Qin Hao poured the Red Lotus Origin Qi into the sword. The emerald sword shadow slashed out a 20 feet long raging flame light, a powerful blow that shocked the nerves of the crowd. Illusory sound. Lu Chou did not dare to be careless. He used a powerful move. His finger quickly flicked 3 times in front of him, and 3 strange sound waves rolled out. The 3 sound waves were like flying dragons in the sky, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws as they roared, facing the falling flames. Rumble. The fiery light severed the 3 illusory sound dragons and mercilessly landed on Lu Chou's head. Qin Hao's swordsmanship was so strong that it made many people in the audience cry out in alarm. What a powerful sword technique! Break for me! Lu Chou clenched his teeth, drawing out all the energy in his body and gathering on his right fist, he raised it above his head. Pum! Lu Chou had disintegrated Qin Hao's swordsmanship, but he was also sent flying. That's all there is to it. Jian Baihong. Qin Hao's confidence was greatly boosted. The Red Lotus fire combined with the Great Void Sword Qi was enough to suppress Lu Chou. If the other party didn't have any trump cards, this battle would be a sure win. With a wave of his hand, the upgraded version of Jian Baihong left his hand once again. Qin Hao's movements were extremely swift, causing others to be dazzled and overwhelmed. His wrist strength was extremely shocking as he easily flipped over and swung out over 100 strands of sword qi that seemed to cover the sky as they madly swept towards Lu Chou. Xiao Yi, who was watching the battle in the royal pavilion, couldn't help nodding his head in appreciation. Seeing Qin Hao's swordsmanship, Zhou Wu Dao and Xianyuan Wuji's expressions changed for the first time. That's looking at the sword qi that covered the sky and covered the earth like flashing lasers. Xiao Han felt his blood boiling and couldn't help standing up. It was so familiar. He missed it so much. It was obviously the Jian Baihong that Brother Qin Hao had taught him. The scene of learning swordsmanship was so vivid in his mind. It was so warm. However, compared to the Jian Baihong that Xiao Han had learned, the power of the Jian Baihong that Qin Hao had used was more than 10 times. No, it was 100 times stronger. The speed and power contained in each of the flashing sword lines could be called perfect. Xiao Han was dumbfounded. He was also shocked, and his heart was in turmoil. The Jian Baihong is fast, fierce, and accurate. The speed and power of the swordsmanship are combined to the extreme. But I never imagined that someone could use this move more than 100 times in a breath. Brother Qin, Hao is really worthy. Xiao Han trembled with excitement, his eyes full of admiration. From afar, Zhou Wu Dao and the others noticed that Xiao Han couldn't help standing up. Moreover, The admiration in Xiao Han's eyes for Qin Hao was undisguised, which instantly aroused the jealousy of Zhou Wudao and the others. Humph, it's just a bit faster. If I use it, I could be 100 times faster than Qin Hao and can shoot out 1,000 sword shadows. The chief disciple of the moon-severing mansion, Kill Million Knife, was the first to provoke. This move is not only fast, but the explosive power of each sword has almost reached the extreme. Even so, if I use it, I can shoot out at least 500 sword cheese. Murong Zijuan didn't have poor eyesight like Kill Million Knife. He also noticed the power of sword principle in the Jianbaihong. Therefore, he felt that his evaluation of Qin Hao was quite sincere. Even so, Qin Hao was still inferior to him. Only Zhou Wudao and Xinyuan Wuji looked at the flashing sword cheese and fell into silence. Their sharp eyes were calm as they secretly grabbed their palms at the same time. Chapter 1041. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Rejuvenation. Zhou Wudao guessed the level of Qin Hao's spirit through a set of sword skills. Maybe he didn't know how high Qin Hao's spirit power was, but he still needed to be on guard. Zhou Wudao was aware of this, but Xinyuan Wuji was not stupid. He secretly glanced at Zhou Wudao. Zhou Wudao seemed to be thinking about something. He knew that this person might have a secret skill to launch a spirit attack. Silently, Xinyuan Wuji nodded and prepared to guard against Zhou Wudao. Both of them had ulterior motives. On the stage, facing Qin Hao's incomparably sharp sword Qi, Lu Chou was overwhelmed. Relying on his strong Yuan Qi, although he shattered a lot of sword Qi, there were too many sword Qi and they were too fast. It was so fast that Lu Chou couldn't keep up with Qin Hao's rhythm. Gradually, many parts of his body turned red. Mixed with his torn clothes, there were many bloodstains. The situation was reversed. Lu Chou fell from the upper hand to the lower hand. Die! Lu Chou stomped on the stage and roared. His two palms drew the airflow, creating transparent ripples. Bright light burst out from his palms. Suddenly, his palms hit each other. Bang! A power that could topple mountains and overturn seas wreaked havoc from his palms. The light completely shattered the startling sword Qi that shuttled around him. However, this move also consumed a lot of Lu Chou's energy. He was soaked in sweat and his face was slightly pale. Your sword skills are so powerful. After activating the strange fire, the power of your sword skills doubled. I admit that I underestimated you. Lu Chou breathed heavily and stared at Qin Hao with his cold eyes. Qin Hao drew a few sword flowers and put the great void sword behind him leisurely. He was not in a hurry to chase after Lu Chou. Still don't want to tell your true identity? Maybe after this move, you won't have the chance to say it. Kill me in one move? You're really shameless, Lu Chou said with disdain. His tone was full of disdain, but his face was very serious. He glanced at the emerald sword behind Qin Hao with fear. The corners of Lu Chou's eyes twitched. He gritted his teeth and had no choice but to take out an extraordinary-looking zither from his space ring. With the zither in his hand, Lu Chou's eyes were moist, as if he was recalling something. Suddenly, Qin Hao pressed his palm on the zither strings, shaking out chaotic sound waves. He roared angrily. To be able to witness my zither skills, you, Qin Hao, have not lived in vain. Die, fever beat. Wong. As soon as Lu Chou loosened his grip, the chaotic sound waves left Lu Chou's zither strings and quickly swept towards Qin Hao's position. This move is? Qin Hao's eyes changed color. He activated his red lotus fiery eyes and quickly retreated. The moment he regained his vision, he recognized the origin of this move. As for Lu Chou's identity, there was no need to guess. Rock and roll sect, six-fingered demonic zither, Qin Hao exclaimed in shock. Along with this, he swung out 8 rays of sword Qi, shattering the sound waves that were attacking him. At this moment, Qin Hao's mood could be imagined. However, on second thought, Lu Chou was definitely not the six-fingered zither demon. The six-fingered zither demon had already died under the Red Lotus fire. It was impossible for him to be resurrected. I understand now. You are the former sect leader of the Rock and Roll sect, the father of the six-fingered zither demon. No wonder you hate me to the core. Qin Hao could not help but be deeply shocked again. The truth was a little unbearable. It was hard to imagine that the 15 or 16-year-old boy in front of him was the father of the six-fingered zither demon. What exactly happened to Lu Chao's body? He actually regained his youth. Qin Hao's surprise only lasted for a moment. As a Dendi, he knew that there was a kind of elixir in the world called the rejuvenation elixir. After taking it, a martial artist would completely change his age. His age would be completely real, and even an Emperor stage martial artist would not be able to detect it. However, don't be fooled by the name of the rejuvenation elixir. After taking this elixir, one could maintain a false age for at most 3 months. When one point of time was up, one would immediately return to his original appearance. Moreover, it would cause great harm to the martial artist's body. The so-called rejuvenation elixir did not exist at all. Otherwise, all the emperors of the continent would be able to cultivate again. Kid, you're really damn smart. You figured everything out in an instant. You are a terrifying opponent. No wonder my son, Lu Xiaoyao, died in your hands. Pay with your life. Lu Chao's identity was exposed by Qin Hao, and his anger increased tenfold. The hatred in his body erupted like a volcano, and following the movements of his fingers on the Guqin, all of it rushed towards Qin Hao to destroy him. Wailing ghosts and howling wolves, an exquisite quintet. Buzz, buzz. 5 accents shattered the space. The strength of the vital energy and the ingenuity of the melody were far superior to 10 six-fingered zither demons. Sun-chasing heavenly rainbow, Qin Hao shouted solemnly. His body rose into the air, and a row of dense sword shadows bloomed magnificently behind him like a peacock spreading its tail. In an instant, the sword light in the sky soared into the sky, and tens of thousands of soldiers below sank. Swish, 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 swish. Countless sword shadows overlapped, turning into an unparalleled sword light that was 10 feet long. Along the way, the Red Lotus tyrannical fire was swept away by Qin Hao with all his might. This was a heaven-grade high-tier sword technique, the second move of the Crepe Myrtle Heavenly Rainbow Sword. Cheating. The person fighting against my master is the old man from the Rock sect who ran away from home. He cheated, he cheated. Lu Chao's identity was exposed, and the arena fell into chaos. Jiang Fan was the first to stand up and roar crazily. He was extremely nervous. Manager Gong Sun stopped the competition immediately and punished that mad dog from the Rock sect. The Jiang family's ancestor, Jiang Bida, stood up angrily and ordered Gong Sun Changxing to take action. After all, Qin Hao killed the six-fingered zither demon for Jiang Fan. Chapter 1042. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Interfere. At the same time, all the disciples of Lingyun School were shouting and demanding that the competition be stopped and that Lu Chou be killed. Fear was written all over everyone's faces. In their opinion, no matter how young and promising their sect leader was, it was impossible for him to defeat the patriarch of the rock and roll sect. Moreover, it was said that the father of the six-fingered Guqin demon had left the sect and disappeared for a treasure. Now that he was back, the treasure must be in his hands. Qin Hao's situation would be even more dangerous. Don't worry, old Master Jiang. In fact, everything is under Emperor Zhao's control. It's not up to me to decide whether to stop the competition or not. Gongsun Changxing said unhurriedly. He was not nervous at all as he glanced at Xiao Yi. You guys don't take Qin Hao's life seriously at all? I absolutely won't allow it. Hurry up and stop the competition, and immediately kill that old bastard Lu Chou. Old Jiang roared loudly, his face flushed red, and he recklessly charged in front of Xiao Yi, and no one could stop him. In fact, no one dared to stop him. In the world, Only Jiang Bida dared to be so rude as to point at Xiao Yi's nose and reprimand him. Father, don't worry. Isn't Qin Hao fine? Lu Tianfang is taking part in the competition under the alias Lu Chou. I didn't stop him because this is a test for Qin Hao. Xiao Yi replied with a smile. He took out a peanut from his pocket and put it in his mouth. Test my ass. Stop the game right now. Jiang Bida was so angry that he stomped his feet. He looked around to see if there was anything like a stone pillar around so that he could act like he was going to hit his head on it. Xiao Yi frowned helplessly. His life was saved by Jiang Bida's wife. As the saying goes, filial piety comes first. It was unfilial to make Jiang Bida angry. However, he really wanted to see how Qin Hao would defeat a martial artist who was one heavenly cycle realm above him. Defeating Lu Chou was of immeasurable value in testing Qin Hao's potential. It was also a test of whether or not he could trust Qin Hao with Xiao Han. Xiao Yi really didn't want to give up. How about this? Let's ask Qin Hao himself. If he agrees to give up on this battle, I'll stop it immediately. What do you think? Xiao Yi asked. Jiang Bida was just about to speak. Far away, Zhou Wudao and the others who had gathered together were the first to speak. Each and every one of their voices was extremely loud. You're just a useless old dog at the peak of the 5th level Yuan Venerate. If you can't even subdue this person, then Qin Hao might as well scram back to Western Liang. The executioner said arrogantly. No matter what, if it were me, I would not give it up. Xin Yuan Wuji sneered. Jingwei, how about this? Ask Qin Hao to get off the stage, and I'll go up instead. I swear that within 3 moves, I will take Lu Chao's head and twist it off for you to use as a chamber pot. Murong Zijuan made a solemn vow as he clenched his fists and took a few steps forward. 3 moves? You're too disgraceful. I only need 1 move to kill this person like an ant. Zhou Wudao pointed at the arena as he spoke in a straightforward and arrogant manner, as if he was invincible. In any case, it was obvious that the 4 of them weren't willing to let Qin Hao get away so easily and advance to the next round. All of you shut up. If you want a chamber pot, you can use it yourself. Xiao Han also rolled his eyes at Murong Zijuan. Aya, so noisy. Qin Hao, you don't have to fight anymore. As long as you're willing, just say the word and Old Man will crush Lu Chao's head and let you advance smoothly. Jiang Bida circulated his internal energy as his voice rumbled out. Everyone knew that Lu Chou had violated the rules of the competition. Killing him wouldn't cause any gossip. On the contrary, this was a wonderful thing for Qin Hao. It was enough to make many people envious. Jiang Bida firmly believed that if Qin Hao wasn't stupid, he would definitely agree. When he shouted, Lu Chou, who was fighting, was instantly terrified. He subconsciously turned his head to look in the direction of the royal tower, afraid that Jiang Bida would suddenly appear and crush his head. With fear and worry, Lu Chou anxiously roared at Qin Hao. Qin Hao, you little brat, if you're a man, then fight vigorously with Old Man to the death. Don't let others interfere. If not, even I look down on you. Princess Jingwei is blind to favor you. You're a coward. You talk too much. Why would I need others to kill you? Block this sword first. Qin Hao's Sunchasur Heavenly Rainbow was released. In midair, the flame that was more than 30 meters long expanded once again. Mixed with the crepe myrtle sword chi, it faintly emitted a dragon's roar. His attitude had already made it clear that he wouldn't allow anyone to interfere in this battle. Sigh. Jiang Bida bent over and sighed heavily. He shook his head and returned to his seat. Xiao Yi and Duan Zhanfei, on the other hand, had looks of admiration on their faces as they simultaneously gave Qin Hao a thumbs up. Manly enough. This was the aura that Daliao's son-in-law should have. TSK. Pretentious. Pretentious people will be struck by lightning sooner or later. Murong Zijuan, Kill Million Blades, and the other 3 all had their hands behind their backs to express their dissatisfaction. If someone wanted to be pretentious, it should be them. The heavens were truly blind. At this moment, the flames in the sky burned half of the sky. The Sunchasur Heavenly Rainbow was like a descending fire dragon. It collided with Lu Chao's pentatonic music midway. Bang, 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 bang. Consecutive explosions shook the heavens and earth. 5 streams of thick black smoke bloomed in front of everyone's eyes. The intense vibration spread from the sky to the ground. The stone slabs cracked, and the cracks spread along the ground to the feet of millions of people. Plop, 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 plop. Even people as strong as Yishu Han and Sayogwa couldn't help but bounce up. Even the imperial tower that Xiao Yi was sitting on was trembling. Chapter 1043. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translation sorry. I'm poisoned immediately after. The rumbling sound of the sky collapsing and the earth sinking descended on the battle arena. A deep gully appeared in the middle of the arena, which had been reinforced by the 10 yuan venerates. The gully extended all the way to the edge, causing the arena to tilt. Everyone saw a figure in tattered clothes fall out of the smoke and dust. Lu Chou, who was hugging his Guqin, spat out a mouthful of blood. Strong. Too strong. His wailing ghost quintet couldn't compare to the might of Qin Hao's sword. Fortunately, he had used his Guqin to protect his body. Otherwise, Lu Chou would have believed that his chest would have been pierced. Qin Hao's swordsmanship is so terrifying. My musical attainments have already reached the peak of the earthly grade. Yao is actually completely restrained by his swordsmanship. How hateful! Lu Chou let out a hoarse roar and stood up. His eyes were filled with madness. He had decided, even if he had to pay the price of shortening his lifespan, he had to deal a fatal blow to Qin Hao. He had to get rid of his youthful state and restore his original appearance in advance so that his cultivation base could return to its peak. If he didn't do this, he wouldn't be able to kill Qin Hao with his 5th level Yuan Venerate cultivation base. Although restoring his Yuan Venerate appearance in advance would consume nearly 30 years of his lifespan, he didn't care. Qin Hao, I want you dead. Lu Chao's eyes were bloodshot as he cursed with resentment. White mist rose from his back, and his hair danced in the air. His aura suddenly surged as he broke through the bottleneck of the 5th level Yuan Venerate and stepped into the peak of the 6th level Yuan Venerate. At this moment, Lu Chou was no longer in his youthful appearance. Instead, he had turned into a wrinkled old man with a white beard and eyebrows. His face was covered in black spots, and his body was emaciated. This scene was so frightening that many people on the Emperor Marshal Plaza screamed in horror. Hee, this is my original appearance, and it is also my best state. Qin Hao, you little brat, your time of death has come. Soaring Sky Rebuff. Lu Chou hugged the zither in his arms and spread out a pair of huge wings. Like a mad dog, he flew madly and played the zither at the same time. His entire body was vibrating with raging sound waves as he crashed into Qin Hao's position. The soaring firmament rebuffing sound was none other than the 6-fingered demonic zither's ultimate technique. At this moment, it was being used by the crazy Lu Chou. It was as if he was prepared to perish together with Qin Hao. Big brother, be careful. Boss. Sec Master. Master, avoid him. Cheers and shouts could be heard from below. Clearly, they all knew that Lu Chou's move was shockingly powerful. Furthermore, Lu Chou had broken through the barrier of the 5th level Yuan Venerate and ascended to the 6th level, leaving Qin Hao in the dust. Defeating a heavenly cycle realm warrior was something that had never happened in the history of the Divine Wilderness mainland. Everyone was on tenterhooks. Dan Xian's fists were filled with sweat, and he was ready to attack. No one is allowed to come here. Qin Hao let out a thunderous roar, causing even more raging flames and sword light to wreak havoc. Even from afar, Xiao Chun could feel the sound waves from Lu Chou's shattering space. According to the current situation, Qin Hao had no chance of stopping him. The only way was Dragon's Soul. Open for me, 50% of the power of the dragon. Lu Chou, you're courting death. Swoosh. A dazzling golden light erupted from the sky. Within the golden light, half of Qin Hao's body was quickly covered by dragon scales. His right arm had completely transformed into a thick dragon claw, and half of his face was flickering with scales, making him look frightening. Bloodthirsty madness began to occupy Qin Hao's mind, causing him to fall into an involuntary state of excitement. However, the 50% bloodthirsty madness was still under Qin Hao's control. It was not enough to cause him to lose his mind and be unable to differentiate between friend and foe. Immediately after, Qin Hao swung his right arm, which had transformed into a dragon claw, and the great void, divine sword rose into the sky, turning into a dazzling spot of light before disappearing. Qin Hao raised his palms high and condensed the red lotus tyrannical fire in his palms. A giant fireball was born. This was the move that had killed the six-fingered Guqin demon. Today, he would let the six-fingered Guqin demon's father have a taste of this move. Flame Dragon Revolving Sky Slash. Roar. The domineering dragon's roar was deafening. Qin Hao raised the giant fireball high and threw it down with all his might. The fireball turned into a cone-shaped beam of light, like a meandering dragon's body, and bombarded Liu. Lucho did not even have the chance to get close. He collided violently with the revolving sky slash. Immediately, the sky was filled with raging flames, mixed with the sound of bones being crushed and Lu Chao's heart-wrenching howl. Boom! A puff of black smoke exploded in the sky. When the black smoke was blown away by the wind, Lu Chao's face was beyond recognition. He had turned into a charred mess, and half of his body had disappeared. Damn it! Lu Chao spat out a weak voice. Half of his body fell back and crashed heavily on the arena. The Guqin in his arms also floated away under an unknown force. Lu Chao defeated. It's not wrong for you to avenge your son. However, you used unscrupulous means to harm Sir. Even if you have 10,000 heads, I will twist them off for you. Qin Hao's eyes emitted a scarlet luster as he stared at the old man who was barely breathing. He grabbed the great void sword and stepped back onto the arena. You little bastard. Old man is going to die. But do you really think you've won? Go to hell together, huh? Before Lu Chao died, he suddenly laughed loudly. An unknown light spot flashed in the sky, like a hidden weapon falling from the sky. Its speed was unbelievably fast. With a puff, it hit Qin Hao's back and sank into his flesh. Qin Hao's body swayed, and his face instantly turned blue and black. Big brother, master, old man, I'll kill you. Xiaogua, Yi Shuihan, and Zhang Fan all flew into the arena with righteous indignation. Chapter 1044. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations Goodbye. Cripple. Oh my god. Boss, you've been hit. And you've been poisoned. Everyone looked at the foot-long morning nail that was embedded in Qin Hao's back, and their expressions changed greatly. Half of this thick morning nail was embedded in Qin Hao's flesh, while the other half was dripping with a dark green, fishy liquid. The fishy liquid was extremely poisonous. Lu Chao had accidentally discovered it while searching for treasures, and it was enough to kill a Yuan Venerate. The rock sect's Grand Elder had been poisoned by this liquid when he had gone out with Lu Chao. In the end, only one of them had returned. Lu Chao was extremely afraid of this fishy liquid. The treasure he had found was naturally the Guqin he had used to deal with Qin Hao. The grade of that Guqin was even higher than the six-fingered Guqin demon's sky-piercing Guqin. Lu Chao had originally wanted to give it to the six-fingered Guqin demon as a birthday present. However, he had discovered that the six-fingered Guqin demon had died. Master, you can't die. We finally reunited. You can't abandon me like this. Zhang Fan was so frightened that he fell to his knees as he saw Qin Hao's face turn darker and darker. His body also started to emit a rotten stench. Qin Hao, hang in there. I'll go get Crouching Dragon and Young Phoenix. Old Master Jiang felt as if his heart had been cut by a knife as he turned around and flew back to the palace. Young Phoenix and Young Phoenix were not only proficient in refining weapons and inscriptions, but they also knew a little about alchemy. However, Qin Hao reached out and grabbed Old Master Jiang's arm, as he shook his head weakly. What's wrong? You can't hold on anymore? Oh, the heavens are jealous of geniuses. You died so miserably. Old Master Jiang felt as if his heart had fallen into a bottomless abyss as he wailed loudly. No, no, no. Qin Hao looked up at the sky, where Lu Chao's strange guqin was floating. Judging from the trajectory of the morning nail, it was obvious that Lu Chao had stuck the hidden weapon in the guqin and used the power of the strings to shoot it out. Lu Chao was a scheming old man. He had gone to great lengths to kill Qin Hao. What a pity! This thing is useless to me. Qin Hao casually pulled out the morning nail from its back, revealing a frightening hole the size of a baby's mouth. Along with the flickering of a layer of sparkling and translucent water, the hole quickly healed. Moreover, it was painless and did not leave the slightest scar. It was as smooth as before. As the serene, tranquil water yuan filtered the meridians in his body, Qin Hao opened his mouth and spat out an ink-like poison. The poison immediately corroded a hole in the arena, emitting black smoke. I'm done, Qin Hao said calmly. 3 black lines appeared on Jiang Bida's forehead. Jiang Fan stared at him and stopped crying. Gongsun Changxing announced the end of the match. The crowd in the Imperial Marshal Square dispersed one after another. The spectators were still very excited and looked forward to the duel in 3 days. Because the duel in 3 days would definitely be 100 times more exciting than today's. They were eager to see the strength of the East Continent's genius, Zhou Wudao. Alas, although I knew I would lose. However, when the result was in front of me, I still couldn't bear it. Tai Guili stood at the bottom and looked at the sacred, solemn, and huge battle arena. He was reluctant to leave for a long time. He still wanted to go up and fight again. Unfortunately, he had completely lost the qualification to take back the heart-connecting mirror for his daughter. Cripple for you. Suddenly, a ray of light flashed. It seemed powerful, but it gently fell into Tai Guili's arms. Tai Guili looked down and couldn't help but tremble. He said excitedly, "The heart-connecting mirror." After returning to the Good Citizen Tavern, Qin Hao shut himself in and started to break through to the 7th layer of the King's stage. The battle with Lu Chao had made him deeply understand that he seemed to have reached his limit. Without a new breakthrough, it would be impossible for him to defeat Zhou Wudao and Xinyuan Wuji. Not to mention, there was still the unfathomable number 1 person on the Emperor Marshal list above Zhou Wudao and Xinyuan Wuji. 3 days. Only 3 days. Qin Hao had to advance by at least 1 level and activate the power of 3 souls before he could have the capital to fight Zhou Wudao. Breaking through from the 6th layer of the King's stage to the 7th layer in 3 days was like a fantasy story in the eyes of others. In the late stages of the martial path, every level was a natural moat. Fortunately, Qin Hao had won a pair of demons subduing pestles and a bottle of Purple Mansion Xuanjin pills from LV Songlian. The demons subduing pestles had been given to Xiaogua. Qin Hao had kept the Xuanjin pills by his side. The Purple Mansion Xuanjin pills were level 8 supremacy pills. They contained boundless spirit energy and had a 30% chance of helping a martialist advance by 1 level. Although the success rate was only 30%, it was already very precious. Luo Yinyang believed that as long as this pill was thrown out, a group of Yuan venerates would go all out to snatch it. With the medicinal power of a level 8 supremacy pill, the success rate of breaking through to the level 7 Monarch realm should be higher than the original foundation. In addition, I have the power of the clear nether water to catalyze the absorption of the medicinal power. At the very least, every Xuanjin pill can double the breakthrough rate. Qin Hao nodded his head and took out the bottle containing the Xuanjin pills. Doubling the breakthrough rate would increase to about 60% to 70%, which was already very high. If he was lucky, Every pill could allow him to advance by one level. However, Qin Hao's constitution was too special, so the spirit energy he required to break through was much more than ordinary people. Thus, he couldn't guarantee that every pill would succeed. Qin Hao opened the bottle cap excitedly and poured out the Xuanjin pills. He couldn't help but frown. Only 3 pills? Wasn't Zhou Wudao too stingy? Qin Hao had thought that there would be at least 10 pills in the bottle. All right, maybe he was a little greedy. 3 pills is barely enough, but it's enough. After swallowing the 3 pills, Qin Hao sat cross-legged on the bed and operated the immortal samsara technique. He opened the clear nether water and began to accelerate the medicinal effect. Gradually, an amazing heat flow surged in his abdomen and quickly spread to his limbs and bones. The heat was so strong that the pores all over Qin Hao's body opened and emitted steam. That's too scary. Zhang Fan patted his chest as his eyes darted around wildly. Only one day, Qin Hao had advanced from a level 6 Yuan Monarch to a level 8 Yuan Monarch. If he was not a monster, what was he? Stop spouting nonsense. How is so? Qin Hao had asked Zhang Fan to pay attention to Su Su's injuries. However, he was more worried about the trauma that Lu Chou had left in Su Su. He's already awake. Master, do you want to take a look at that little guy? That little guy's physique is really strong. He woke up in just 3 days after being hit by the supremacy aura. If it were me, I would probably be bedridden for half a year. How do you think he did it? Move aside. Qin Hao pushed Zhang Fan's head away. This unfilial disciple was chattering nonstop. Master, wait. Ling Xiaoxue asked me to pass this to you. Zhang Fan took out a letter from his chest. Qin Hao turned around and his heart skipped a beat. Could be that Ling Xiaoxue took things too hard and went to Northern Yin to look for Song Ziang? That would only make things worse. In front of martial emperor, others were like ants. After snatching the letter, Qin Hao hurriedly opened his red lotus flaming eyes to take a look. He heaved a sigh of relief when he saw the words. The content had nothing to do with Ling Xiaoxue. She did not leave Daliao. This was a letter that Liang Xiaoxi from Lingyun School left for Qin Hao. He said that he had forgiven Qin Hao. This letter has been kept in the sect for a long time. Around the 3rd day after your accident at Mount Lanchuan, Liang Xiaoxi left the sect and returned to his hometown in Zhuchuan town alone. Zhang Fan recalled. Every time he thought of Mount Lanchuan, his heart would explode with fear. He finally got over it. It's good that he went back to sell buns. Qin Hao sighed. He raised his hand, and the flames in his palm burned the letter. It was no wonder that after the sect moved to Lingtai City, Liang Xiaoxi seemed to have changed into a different person. He was no longer arrogant in front of Qin Hao and no longer showed off. He must have realized that his Yuan King physique and his quick breakthrough to the essence-gathering realm were all because of Qin Hao's secret help. And Liang Xiaoxi's true martial body was only at the mortal saint realm. Even if he unleashed his potential to the limit, he would be stuck at the mortal saint realm for the rest of his life. He was not a martial arts genius. We put down the grudge between him and Qin Hao. He chose to go back to selling buns and carry forward the skills passed down by his ancestors. However, the letter mentioned that Liang Xiaoxi said that he would always be a disciple of Lingyun School. If Qin Hao came back alive and participated in the Diwu competition, he would express his deep blessings. Master, where are you going? Zhang Fan was still lamenting when he saw Qin Hao coming downstairs. I'm going to the Warlord Mansion. Qin Hao said angrily. For some reason, he felt that Zhang Fan was too much of an eyesore. I have a total of 6 disciples, and the other 5 are all Yuan emperors. Only Zhang Fan is useless. Forget it, don't count on him. Master, wait for me, I'll go with you. Zhang Fan pulled up his pants and rushed downstairs to chase after him with a face full of joy. He knew all too well that if he wanted to increase his realm, even if he couldn't bear the hardships of cultivation, he would only be able to grab the pie that fell from the sky if he stayed by his master's side. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.